3000.
What is doing? My name's Maloney. This is the 3000 podcast. I'm joined today by an MC, a garment enthusiast, and who is often referred to as the godfather of Australian grime, Fracture. Thanks for coming, man.
Thank you for having me, man. Really happy to be here.
Is that a humbling introduction, the garment enthusiast?
Yeah, you know, I'm definitely into my garms, you know what I mean? Written a few songs about it over the years, so yeah.
My mother-in-law's in town and she asked me, who's coming on your show today? And I said to her, it's a grime artist, and I had to try and explain that to her.
Yep.
If you're explaining grime to a 70-year-old lady, what would you say?
Ooh, I would say to a 70-year-old lady.
She's pretty cool,
Yeah.
remember?
Look, I guess probably one of the easiest ways to say it, which wouldn't necessarily be true, but it may be like an English version of hip hop, like
Kind of what I said.
Yeah, with like a huge Jamaican influence, I guess, you know. But people in England probably wouldn't call grime hip hop, you know what I mean? But it's, you know, it's obviously shares a lot of the same aesthetics and, you know, influences. But you know, it definitely came up separate from hip hop. But yeah, I guess to you know, to someone outside of all that, yeah, like maybe an English version of hip hop with its own style.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I said with Jamaican sort of dancehall influences, and then obviously maybe a little bit more electronic than your typical hip hop.
Yeah. Well, you know, it originally comes from, you know, garage music, and then, you know, garage, you know, heavily influenced by jungle and drum and bass, and all of those come from essentially from sound system culture from Jamaica, you know, and hip hop does as well. You know, when you look back, like was it, you know, called DJ Herc, you know, he's Jamaican. Everything comes from this. The influence that small island has on the world.
Yeah.
I think there's only like 3 million people in Jamaica, you know, but the influence musically that's had on the world is insane, and especially in England, you know, it's crazy. You know, the slang that everyone uses in England is all stems from there. You know,
Small island, but big speakers, though, man.
yeah, just, you know, just
Big sound.
very, you know, very charismatic people. You know, very, you know, very interesting place. You know, I went there many years ago. I'd love to go back again. And but yeah, it's that whole sound system dancehall culture. You know, I guess the originators of grime, you know, they were growing up watching their parents, you know, and stuff who were into that. You know, those clashing cultures like Sting and you know, Sunfest and things like that. You know, those old like Ninja Man, those sort of clashes and stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you've summed it up a much better way than I could have. So I'll play that to her so she'll understand it a little bit more. Let's go. Obviously now you live in Melbourne, and I believe you're an Australian citizen now with your PR.
I certainly am. I've got the PR first, and then citizen. Then you have that for a couple of years, and now I'm a citizen. So yeah, it's taken a long time and a lot of money. Cost me a lot of money, a lot of lawyers and stuff, and you know they rejected me at first. And
really,
yeah, and. You know, but I'm Australian citizen now. I was thinking about it last night. You know, I still feel English, and you know, but you know, I'm a citizen of the country, and it won't be long till I've lived here longer than England. So that'll be a weird, strange thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow. That is a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go back to the beginning. So tell us about growing up in England. I believe you grew up just out of London. Do you want to tell us where you grew up, man?
Yeah, I grew up in a place called Slough, which is about like 20 minutes from outskirts of London, sort of thing. So a lot of people these days call it. Some people call it West London. People within London would laugh and say, "No, it's not London." And you know what I mean?
Can you catch the tube to London?
You can now. There is a tube line. You know, they go straight there. But it's always had that thing. It's not London, but it's on the very much on the outskirts. You know what I mean? And yeah, I grew up there. It's a very, very multicultural place, and you know, it has some rich areas, some poor areas, like most of England. And yeah, it's kind of the butt of many jokes. Slough is,
Really?
yeah, it's kind of like maybe I'm trying to think. Maybe people look at it like maybe like the Frankston of Melbourne.
Yep.
You know, people look at it like that, and you know, if you've seen The Office is set in Slough.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yep.
And traditionally, it's always been seen as a bit of a shithole. Like, you know, lots of you know, brutalist architecture, that kind of stuff, and
Which is cool. I like
yeah,
that
which
shit.
people like now, which seems to
Yeah.
be coming back in. I think it looks sick, that stuff, you know, but like they're starting to get rid of a lot of that now. Uh, yeah, it's but it's, you know, it's not somewhere I wanted to stay for long term.
Yeah,
you
it
know what
didn't
I mean?
really have a creative sort of hub. Was there a
Nah.
community there for that sort of thing?
There was when I was growing up. We had a lot of youth clubs,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a big thing in England in you know the 80s and the 90s youth clubs, which kind of really died out.
Yep.
But they were a place for a lot of people to go to and do stuff and, you know, get involved in music, and that was where, you know, I ended up first recording music or first getting into, you know, being in a studio.
Yeah.
You know, and these are just basically like set up in local schools. But the youth club I actually went to was where The Office is filmed, that actual office block.
Wow.
Yeah, which is my dad's old school.
Wow.
And they're just run by like volunteers, you know, and they'd have...
So they're not council. They're not sort of sanctioned by the council to get
Some of
kids
them
off
are,
the street.
some of them are, some are not. You know, but they're just like a place where kids can go rather than just hanging on the street. You know, and you'll go there, they'll have a snooker table, table tennis table, might be some computer games. You know, you can buy subsidised cans of Coke and crisps and stuff like that. And you know, and a lot of people like, you know, get the first hookups with girls at youth clubs and that sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Like blue light disco type
Yeah.
scenarios.
You know, and then, you know, there's always trouble at these places as well. You know, as happens when you stick a lot of young kids together.
So that's where you're discovering sort of music. Are you getting into music through hip hop culture or what?
No. I was into music from from as far back as I can remember. Like my parents have always been massive into music.
What are they playing at home?
Like my mum was at a Led Zeppelin gig, like with me while she's pregnant, like 3 months before she gave birth to me.
Yeah,
know,
maybe that was what started the journey with music.
Maybe, and they were always, you know, going to gigs and stuff. And one of my dad's best friends is in the music business. He was on Next Door Neighbour when we were growing up. You know, he was just managing sort of rubbishy bands, but then he kind of made his way and got quite big, and he ended up managing Bryan Adams.
Wow.
And so I was just always around music. My dad was massive, you know, Pink Floyd fan, loved all that stuff, but he was into everything, you know. So he would give me. He had a massive vinyl collection when I was young, and I'd just be playing through that. And you know, he'd give me Sex Pistols records, Ramones, Stranglers, anything and everything.
So he was
you know.
he was on the edge of what was cool and what was coming through, you know.
Seemed to be, you know, like he'd come. I remember giving me tapes. He gave me a Public Enemy tape when I was probably 8 or 9. You know, he wasn't into that, but maybe people at work were gave it to him, and he passed it on to me. You know, and so yeah. But I think I was just always surrounded by music, and you know, my cousin. You know, cousins are very influential when you're growing up and stuff. I used to go to his place a lot, and he was, you know, say in the late 80s, he was into like thrash metal and stuff, and so then I would listen to that through him and started, you know, getting into like, you know, Slayer and things like that when I was like 8 or 9.
Angsty stuff
Yeah,
for
yeah.
a kid though.
Yeah, you know, but as a kid, you love that, all that shit, the pentagrams and stuff, you know what I mean? It's sick, like, you know what I mean? And then I was like, you know, I always kind of had this thing where I wanted to like delve deeper into like the stuff that other people weren't listening to. I was like, so then he was listening to that. I was like, nah, that's cool. I want to find more underground stuff. And I was like listening to Napalm Death and things like that when I was like 8 or 9 or 10, you know.
Before you're even in your teenage years.
Yeah, just through my cousin. Like he was like the stereotypical 80s headbanger, you know, tight.
He's a bit older than you.
Like 10 years older than me,
Right,
you know.
yeah.
He was like stonewashed denim, tight denim, you know, white high tops and long mullet, like, you know what I mean? So, you know, he was all into that. And then kind of through that, started getting into, you know, like I said, my dad would give me Sex Pistols records. I loved. As soon as I started hearing English versions of everything, I liked it a lot more, you know. So I remember him giving me. I remember getting Ramones records, and I thought that was cool. But then when I heard Sex Pistols, I was like, oh, that's English accents, and they're swearing and saying "fuck the Queen" and things like this, and that kind of
spoke to you more.
Yeah, I loved that, and started getting more into. I got more into like punk stuff, you know, as I was 11, 12, you know, Nirvana and things like that. And I started going to gigs pretty young, like 13, 14. we were lucky we had a venue near us. It was called the Old Trout in Windsor, which is like next to Slough, and they used to have gigs on all the time. And you know, I'd go there, and you could. This was the days when you could get in with fake ID.
Yep.
Like there was no like digital IDs. You know what I mean? Everyone knew you were underage, but it was just kind of this unspoken thing. You get in, I was like, you know,
At least you're going to a gig. You're not fucking starting
Yeah.
trouble in the street and shit. you know?
Yeah, so we'd literally go to gigs every weekend, like Friday, Saturday, you know, at the Old Trout, and see all these random punk bands and stuff, you know. I remember, you know, stage diving to like L7 when I was like 14 and stuff, and, you know, and I was aware of hip hop, but it wasn't really, I remember people were listening to like Cypress Hill, Biggie, Tupac and stuff. It didn't really speak to me, you know what I mean?
Because of the Americanisms and the
Yeah,
accents?
I think so. You know, I just didn't really do it for me. You know, and then I was in a band as well. I played guitar, and you know, we played gigs like when we were like, you know, early teens as well. And then I guess it was where, you know, was when I started hearing English rappers. You know what I mean? Like I remember I had a friend called Siren. Met him like graffiti, and he played me like a tape of like Skinny Man. It was a DJ MK tape. This DJ from England. And it was like, and it had Skinny Man on it, and people and Super T. And these people were rapping in English accents. So I was like, and this just blew me away. I was like, wow, like this, you know, it wasn't cheesy like people putting on American accents. I knew that wasn't really the thing to do almost immediately. Like once I heard these guys, and I was like, and then I just was hooked from there.
There.
Yeah.
And are they rapping over American beats? Are they creating their beats like in that stage in the early essence? You're right, man. Yeah. In the early days, are they? Yeah, is it original or are they rapping over American sort of production?
Yeah, they were rapping over. It was freestyles. It wasn't even tracks. You know, it was just like, you know, rapping over whatever beats they had. I guess, you know. Like I started. So before then, I did like. Don't get me wrong, I did like some American hip hop. Like I loved when I heard Wu-Tang and Mobb Deep. Like that was totally different to me. I felt like Tupac and stuff. Like it felt a little bit poppy. Like, and now looking back, you know, I just see that, you know, it's just obviously that's not really what it was, but it just didn't vibe with me at the time. And you know, I loved Mobb Deep and Wu-Tang, but yeah, when I heard those English rappers rapping over the Mobb Deep and Wu-Tang beats, that was what kind of drew me in, you know. And at the same time, I was going out and listening to Jungle, which was kind of really popping off in the mid-90s, and that was when I first started like going out, and every house party you went to was people playing Jungle, you know. And
it was a turning point in music culture.
Yeah. Like, you know, Jungle was obviously, you know, hugely Jamaican influence, you know what I mean? It had all the reggae samples in it and stuff, and the bass, and you know, that was where I first sort of, you know, was around sort of people smoking weed and stuff, and it was just opened my eyes up to this whole other thing, and there seemed to be, you know, just the UK MCs just connected with me more, you know. Hear them using the slang that, you know, was hearing around me. It's like, you know.
And then you're sort of going, all right, well, you're going to start rapping yourself, you start writing, you start to think, well, if other dudes are doing it, I can fucking do it too.
Yeah, well, it just been like from my house parties, you know. I had a friend, Brinks, he's one of the guys on one of my tunes, Creepin'. He was the guy who introduced me to like a lot of the American stuff, like Onyx and stuff. Like we used to shave our heads like Onyx, you know, and, you know, Attack of the Bald Heads. And then he started rapping first, having little bars here and there. We were just rapping at house parties, you know what I mean? Wasn't really, you know, there was nothing serious about it.
With mics, or you just like...
Nah, not at all. No. Just, you know, just playing beats and, you know, just drunk, rubbish stuff, you know what I mean? You know, and talking absolute rubbish, you know, but then as I started like delving more into like finding that there was like a whole UK scene of good music and stuff, and I was going out to these like Jungle events, like I was saying, they'd always have second rooms, which were the hip hop room. And so I started spending more time in there.
Yep.
And seeing that, you know, and hearing these artists, you know, like Rodney P, Out Deville, Skinny Man, stuff like that. And, you know, I was just kind of, immerse myself in that. Basically, I started going out everywhere I could to see this stuff, and just started writing some stuff myself, with Brinks and my friend Benny, and we had this. We knew that there was like a guy at the youth club, and he was like had some studio equipment, and he was like, "Yeah, come down if you want to. We can record stuff. We can write some stuff together." And so the very first time we went to the studio, we made a beat with him. He was like, he was like play some. He was like telling us what samples were and how you do it and stuff, and we played. Do you know Paul Weller? We sampled a Paul Weller song.
Yeah, he's like an acoustic sort of.
Yeah, well, he was in the jam. He was originally he was in the Jam, like kind of like a bit of a new
his
wave
solo
pong
stuff was
stuff.
very singer-songwritery.
Yeah. And we sampled one of his songs and just looped it up and just recording stuff in there, and it was just having fun, and it just went from there. And
what do you remember? What equipment you're using back then to do that sort of stuff? So it's not like it's very DIY. They didn't have like an MPC or anything like that.
I can't even remember what they had. To be honest, I don't think there was an MPC. He was the guy was he was a dance music. I wouldn't even remember what type of dance music it was, but. So he wasn't a hip hop guy or anything.
Yeah.
But he had a whole stack of equipment. He had loads of the
amps and
the
preamps.
I don't even know what they are. I still don't know what they are. So he had all that stuff, and we were just making random stuff and just recording random things, and it was just really really fun, and just went from there. I guess. Yeah.
Had you developed the Fracture name at this stage?
Okay. No, I called myself originally. My first name was I used to write Took, T-O-O-K, so I called myself that, and then I was like, nah, I don't like that, and then I don't know, Fracture. Well, I don't know where it came from. Like, it's a terrible name. Like, I just kind of.
I don't think so, man.
I think I started trying to write it. I was like trying to paint it as well, and I was like, I was rubbish at graffiti.
Right.
So that's kind of like, because I started DJing, I started trying to DJ first and graffiti, and I was rubbish at both of them. And so started trying to MC. And I don't know where it came from. I just thought it sounded cool as a teenager, Fracture, it's like, but, names kind of just, they don't mean anything these, like now. And it's just one of those things that stuck with me. Like I look at Scotty Hines, and, I think it's just his name. When it works, really cool for him.
Yeah, that's those people are lucky though.
Yeah. So like my real name's Ollie or Oliver. So I don't know where that sounded as cool as a rap name. I mean, maybe Oliver Twist or something like.
Yeah.
But so we were just messing around really, and there was no sort of we didn't have any songs. It wasn't like I didn't do my first show till I came to Australia in like 2002.
Yeah, right.
I think we would just go. We were doing open mics. Like we'd go to all these shows, and they were like, it was probably exactly the same as like late 90s, early 2000s sort of stuff over in Australia. You know what I mean? These tiny shows. There's no stars or whatever. There's no big names or anything really, but there'd always be open mics, and so you'd go and you'd stand on the side of the stage with 20 other people, shitting yourself, waiting for your turn, and I just seemed to, I got a good reaction, like from the start. Like I was like, and I'd see other people and they'd get a shit reaction. I was like, okay, well, there's something here, like, you know what I mean? So I just, kind of studied other people, how they wrote, like had a look at, I'd write out people's bars and be like, okay, so the rhyming word lands on that, and you know what I mean? And
they go faster at this point.
Yeah. And I'd start by like, writing my own lyrics in that kind of like flow or whatever, and see how that would, and just kind of progress from there. But yeah, it was just open mic stuff. It was, like I say, it wasn't until I came to Australia that I really actually did a show.
Yeah. So, but going sort of back to when you are still in the UK, at what point does grime actually it deviates away from the sort of hip hop stuff and becomes its own thing?
Well, it was never a part of hip hop at the start. Yeah. So,
but the hip hop was influencing what was happening, and then people were recording. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
So basically, the hip hop and the grime scene were always very separate
from day one.
Day one, yeah. But hip hop culture or just the aesthetics of it all. You know, it's the same everywhere in the world. You know, it's you know, they communities of people just love community. You know, the poorer communities love hip hop. Like it speaks to people, and people were dressing like they're in hip hop and making grime. So like garage was about, and it started getting a bit. Like the early garage MCs were very simple. Like it was like, you know, 1, 2, 3, lyrical MC. Like, you know, I didn't really feel that and stuff. And it started getting a bit more bougie, and like you had to dress up to get into clubs. Like you had to wear shoes and shirts.
Like leather shoes.
Yeah, dress shoes.
Button-up shirts.
Yeah. You know, but people, you know, like people would do that, but it would just never appeal to me. I could never dress up I could never put on a pair of dress shoes or a shirt. You know what I mean? And so I just completely switched off from that. But then grime started. There started being people. What people started doing is a lot of the early garage tunes. They had a vocal in them, like a sample vocal. But then there would be a little 8-bar break in between, and then MCs would spit on that. You know, it's very similar to how hip hop came about. You know what I mean?
Sounds like
yeah. And so MCs would spit on that, and then they started extending exactly like hip hop, extending that 8-bar break, and so. I guess the big part that I haven't mentioned is pirate radio. Like you know, pirate radio is the big thing in England that's kind of driven all of these genres, you know. And so so if anyone doesn't know, pirate radio is just a legal radio station. You know, people would set up in housing blocks, you know, they'd put a antenna up somewhere, transmitters, and they would just broadcast their local areas. So London, there's tons of them, and you know, in Slough there was a few, you know, and so everyone. Young people would listen to the pirate radio. You wouldn't be listening to Kiss FM or BBC or anything like that. And so you'd start getting like locals. People would be like local stars, you know, based on pirate radio. And I guess the MC started taking over and started being the big, rather than just kind of hyping the music. They started being the main thing.
Same thing happened with hip hop as well. It's
very
following a similar path.
Yeah. And a lot of the older garage guys didn't like that, you know. So it was all these young, like rowdy kids coming in, taking over their scene. And then the music started getting darker and darker and darker, and it just became, you know, and it became what grime is, and it was just these 8-bar loops, you know. So originally, I didn't even have a name. Like it was, some people would call it 8-bar, or some people would call it sub-low. You know, some people would call it Esky. So Esky is what Wiley sort of started calling it, you know, and then grime. A lot of people, it's called grime now, but a lot of people didn't like the name grime at the time because it made it sound like dirty, or, you know. It
was hard to get gigs if you go, we're going to come here and do a grime show. They're like, that sounds scary, man, to a promoter or some shit.
Yeah, so, and so I wasn't really into, like I said, I wasn't really into the garage scene so much, and that was when garage was kind of at the real height, like, you know, 2001. I went to Australia in 2002.
Just on a holiday?
No, so I was like, you know, just to avoid getting a job, you know, like you usually do when you're young, like go traveling. Maybe I'll go to Australia. So I got a you know, traveling, it's like working holiday visa, it's called, and came over to Australia. And so grime wasn't a thing basically when I left. There would have been stuff bubbling in like East London that I wasn't aware of. But then while I was away, it kind of popped off, and then when I came back, it was a thing. So I started hearing about it while I was in Australia, you know.
But you were like, I've been sort of part of this thing that's bubbling up, and it hasn't really hit its straps, and then you go away, and then it sort of pops off.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was part of it, because I was more into the hip hop scene, you know, and the jungle stuff, which was kind of slowly dying off, and it was the garage scene that I'd kind of actively avoided.
Yep.
Like I didn't like it too much, but then. When I started, what it was is when the MC started taking over more and more, that was what drew me more in. So there was like a couple of big tunes from like Heartless Crew, Pay As You Go, Cartel, and they were like the early tunes. And when I heard them, and they were doing a bit more than just doing the 1, 2, 3 lyrical MC stuff, and that was what drew me in. And I was just like, this is so much more exciting than hip hop, or the hip hop that I was hearing. And there was this thing that it always felt that the hip hop wasn't ours, you know. It was always recreating something else from America.
That's an
even though it was you know, it's English accents, English slang, but grime just felt like
It was
ours.
yours,
Yeah, know what I mean? So, and then once I started hearing it, I was just like hooked. I was, you know,
Yeah.
and so
And at that period of time, just thinking of someone who was in Melbourne who didn't travel at that stage, at that point, globally, like the streets go and sort of that becomes a huge sort of factor to push that UK music globally. Like before that, it was the only stuff you heard coming out of the UK was like alternative rock or pop music. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, funny you say that. Like drum and bass was huge over here. When
But it was, but still underground.
yeah,
You wouldn't hear it on the
yeah.
radio.
No, of
All of a
course, no.
sudden, you're seeing film clips with fucking Mike Skinner and stuff.
Yeah.
That wasn't happening previously. Maybe
Yeah.
a little bit of.
So he
house
was,
music.
yeah, he was kind of like on that kind of that time. He was, you know, very garage. He was obviously garagey, but it was on that time where things were starting to like blur between garage and grime. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I remember when I was in Australia, I started hearing about this guy called Dizzy Rascal, and then when I went back to England, I got his album and started hearing a lot more of these MCs. And my friend came over and he played me a guy called Kano, and then it was just like opened up my eyes up to this whole new scene that had happened while I was gone, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, man, I'm going to be a part of this.
Yeah, I was just, well, not even necessarily want to be a part of it as an MC. I was just like, it wasn't straight away that I started MCing the grime. I was just like, just a big fan. And then I was always in this conundrum, like, oh, do I do hip hop or grime? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and you know, it took a while for me to be like, grime's kind of where I want to lean towards, you know?
Because realistically, you had to pick a side. You couldn't be somewhere in the middle at that stage.
Yeah, kind of. Like a lot of the hip hop people just didn't just in England just did not feel it and just kind of saw the MCs as very basic, saw the beats as being very not dated but basic. There was, you know, because people originally were making early, you know, they were making beats on PlayStation. Like that was how the first.
That's cool.
You know,
though,
yeah, the first beat they were just making them what they could. They didn't have access. People didn't have access to equipment. You know, and so the first beats you hear are like very simplistic. You know what I mean? Very sparse. You know, not much to them. There's no sampling. Like, you know what I mean?
But that leaves a lot of space for the MC to flex their muscles.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, 100%. You know, it was all about the MCs. You know, and the early like first pioneers of grime. You know, the different styles is just insane. Like, you know what I mean? They've become like the templates for everyone since. You know, there's people like DWE, then Wiley, then Kano, Getz, you know, Dirty Goods. Like these MCs are all so different to each other. And it was just a really, really exciting time for UK music. It was like, if social media had been around by then, all these guys would have been like absolute, like huge. But I think it was good because it allowed it to develop, without sort of, organically, because these guys were all like absolute superstars, like on a street level, and in schools and stuff, people were like Bluetoothing all their songs about, and, if you couldn't really buy the music anywhere, like Dizzy Rascal was like one of the first albums.
Yeah, I think it was Universal or one of those big brands, big labels, wasn't he? When he went.
I think he was. I think he was on XL, which was a big indie label. They'd done the Prodigy and stuff like that.
Yep.
And he won like the Mercury Music Award, which is like a big award in England.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that kind of was the recognition. He was like, I think he was only like 17 or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, you couldn't. There was nowhere to get. You could only really hear the songs on pirate radio.
Yep.
Or people were pressing up vinyl, but I don't have a record player, and it's not like you could buy the vinyl at your local record store. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you were getting you're finding a lot of stuff on LimeWire and Napstar, and just like shitty downloads.
Yeah.
Where you take 2 hours to download a song or something.
Yeah.
Or there'd be occasionally a specialist show on something like Kiss FM or something.
Yeah. So I'm guessing when it's not Wiley, sorry. When Dizzy Rascal wins a Mercury Prize, I guess that shines a light on the whole genre in itself, or the whole sort of scene, because people that aren't privy to this, that maybe aren't listening to private radio, they're gonna have to hear about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He went from overnight winning that to put him into the mainstream, and he was, in a sense, and you'd see him in all the, the tabloids. He was in all the tabloids. And
he was on Australian radio here after that as well.
Yeah. and then it shone a light on all these other artists, you know. And then Wiley put out an album, but still, and Kano put an album, but still wasn't much, still wasn't much actual official releases. You know what I mean? It was more about like the radio and the raves. Like the raves were a huge thing.
Yeah. And with the raves comes the drug culture, which is always fun as well. Goes hand in hand.
Well, there wasn't so much in grime. You know what I mean? It was weed, yeah, but like wasn't like people were doing pills or you know, or maybe people, you know, some people would have been doing some coke, but it wasn't like glorified. It was quite looked down upon.
Yep.
You know, it's frowned upon.
Just
you know?
weed and drinking.
Yeah, or not. You know, it was not even drinking. Just just weed. You know what I mean? I think because you know, initially, you know, it's a music it's black culture. It's come from the black community, and I think traditionally, the black community looks down on like cocaine, pills, and drinking. You know what I mean? Some people will do it in the background, but it's not glorified like it is in white culture. You know?
And
So
in American music, they definitely glorify it a lot more as well.
I think so nowadays. Yeah, especially it's definitely changed. Yeah. But no, it wasn't like if you go to drum and bass, that was different. It was full of people on pills and everything, you know. But no, not grime events like.
But could these different genres cross over with big parties and that sort of thing? Like,
Yes, you would often get, you know, a lot. What struck me when I first came to Australia was the lack of multi-genre events. So I was quite used to going to an event and there being like 3 rooms, be a hip hop room, jungle room, grime room, or garage room, you know. And then over here it was, if you had a multi-genre event, a multi-room event, it would be the same genre in each room.
pretty much,
you know,
or just
or slightly different. So I was like, why am I going to these? I'd go to a lot of drum and bass and jungle gigs over here, and I'd be like, don't see anyone from the hip hop scene there. I mean, like, why is the second room not hip hop, or you know?
Yeah, and does that lead you to think, well, maybe there's a gap in the market, or you just want to create something there that you know you're like, fuck, we could make something here that would actually people would want.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about it too much. Like, it was never like a plan. Yeah, it was just I just noticed I would go to drum and bass events and I wouldn't see anyone from the hip hop scene there. Yeah, and it was very much like there was this thing back then in Australia. It seemed like anything that was kind of electronic or dance music, people considered like duff, like, or you know, or you know, hippie or like festival music or something. It was totally different, you know. I noticed that straight away.
The whole doof thing is funny. Like, people say it here and people are proud of it now. Like, yeah, we're going to a doof, but it used to be like that's how your grandma would describe anything that they didn't understand. They're like that doof music.
Yeah, I didn't understand it. Like, I was like,
it's not used in the UK. It's not a term that's used.
No. I think we're very. I think what back then especially it was like I say, a lot of electronic music was just all piled into one, or anything that wasn't hip hop or rock, anything electronic dance was all piled into this one genre. And Americans do it now by calling everything EDM, which grinds my gears. Like,
they used to call it big beat for a while. That was.
I'm like, fuck, like this. So you couldn't. It's just it's silly, you know what I mean? Like, garage is totally different to drum and bass, totally different, you know, to house, totally different to trance, to techno. They're all different genres, you know. It kind of shows a bit of ignorance.
Yeah, it does. I think with hip hop, America was leading the way, but with other tastes of music, Europe, I think, leads the way, and America's always late to catch on with that
100%. You know what I mean? You know, and they often bastardize it and just make it into some McDonald's version of it, like they did with dubstep. You know, like
you know? Yeah, man. So on your personal journey now, getting back to that, you're coming back to Australia on as a permanent sort of thing. When you were on your working holiday, you go back to the UK, grime's popping off, then you're coming back here with another visa, or how did it happen?
I was doing the year in Australia, never like.
And that's all you could do at that time?
Yeah, so you could only get a year visa, and you had to work for like, I think 3 months of the time or whatever.
Picking fruit or whatever.
No, you didn't. No, that was something they brought in later, which enabled you to extend it for another year.
Yep.
If you did that, but I basically spent that year just all in Melbourne. Like, I started in Perth and did 2 months in Perth.
That's interesting. Why Perth?
I think it's just the nearest. It was the first place on the plane.
Right.
Like I flew to Hong Kong, spent few days in Hong Kong, then flew to Perth, and I loved Perth. Yeah, I loved it, and really had a really good time there. And then came to Melbourne, and I stayed at the Backpackers in St Kilda. You know the one.
Which one? There's a lot.
What's the old one, the big fucking tall one on near Grey Street, like
Oh, yeah.
near round the corner from the what was the English pub, the Elephant and Wheelbarrow.
Yeah. That's called the Coffee House or some shit now.
Yeah, I stayed there. I was there for like 2 nights and saw like an advert on the wall for like a place in Balaclava, like cheaper than what we were paying. And then I was there. I lived in Balaclava for the next 8 months, basically.
Yeah.
And I loved Melbourne. I didn't do any traveling, any backpacking or such. I just ended up working for this guy in Balaclava and just, you told me you're lived in St Kilda, so you remember what early 2000s Balaclava was like, you know.
Yeah, man, I lived there as well.
Yeah, so do you remember Hustlers?
Yeah, Little Hustlers, yeah.
So I worked for the guy who ran that.
Really?
Yeah, so he used to have a load of apartments around Melbourne. He's a big Israeli guy.
Yeah.
And used to fill his apartments with Israelis. They would come over here to like avoid national service and stuff, and I'd go and I'd worked for him, kind of just collecting rent and little other things and stuff, and it was crazy. It was fun, crazy time.
Times, yeah, man.
Yeah, and then never thought that I was gonna stay for any length of time in Australia or come back even, but just as soon as I got involved into the music scene there, like in that year, it kind of just changed everything, changed my view, my sort of outlook on everything and what was possible.
Yeah.
And meeting people, like within a couple of months of being in Melbourne, I'd met so many people, and, like I said, I'd done my first gig in that time while I was backpacking, I basically blagged my way, lied my way through, and just kind of made out. Because at the time, English hip hop was kind of bubbling, and Task Force had just been over, and so people were like really G'd on English rappers.
Yep.
And so I was like, yeah, I'm an English rapper, you know what I mean? Like, oh, yeah, sort of thing. And people. So I suddenly just got fucking influx of opportunities. Like it's crazy when I think about it now. My first time on stage, was in Perth actually, because I met people in Perth. Was with Hunter and Matty B, people and Downside and people like that.
Syllabolics group.
Yeah, and then I came to Melbourne and I met Reason and Checkmate because I'd look up. Basically, I'd get Beat Magazine. I'd see what things were happening. I'd see these events in like Dandenong and Frankston. These like street science they used to be called. These like community events. I'd just get the train up there on my own and just go and do like these open mics. And I met Checkmate and Reason out there, and then I met Flagrant. And my very first show was like New Year's Eve at Laundry in 2002 with Sporting Bliss and SO.
Yeah, wow.
So it sounds so strange to say now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so that was like made me think, this is so much better than living in Slough, like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you can be part of something that's starting from the ground up, like literally just in its very early infancy.
Yeah. So I just went back to England with a girl that I met out here. Spent a couple years back in England, kind of just saving a bit of money and whatnot.
Thinking, fuck, it's cold over here.
Yeah, like really, and I'd be like on the phone to people. Like I was on the phone to Reason and Pegs and Flagrant, like, don't forget me, I'm going to come back. Yeah. And then, when I got the chance in 2006, came back and haven't left.
Yeah. And that's it. So then you can get a different visa at that point in time and you can stay a bit longer. And then I guess it's a game of just the extending. And
Yeah. So I got the visa through the girl I was with at the time. It was a bit of a nightmare because she was actually Kiwi.
Yeah.
So it was like this weird Kiwi visa for Australia, and so I had to keep extending it every 5 years and pay loads of money. And it was only in the last sort of 3 years that I got the citizenship. Yeah, after being because I've been here for so long, and people think that you can just
not that easy.
People think that you've been here 15 years, you can just now apply for citizenship, and so it's not like that. It doesn't work like that. You've got to have a connection, or I'm married to an Australian now, so that helped me obviously. But without being married to an Australian, there's no There's no, I can't just do it just because I've been there for a long time. You know what I mean? Like, I can't just,
Us as Australians, we take it for granted that we can just live here. I know so many people, especially from the UK, that want to stay, or even America or whatever. They want to stay, and they make it so hard. I know people that have spent like $15,000 on
I
different.
spent 20.
Yeah, but
like,
they never.
for
But then
that-
they
for
had to
that.
go home.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's crazy. Like, the government is making, it's an absolute rort. Like, you know what I mean? And they doubled it, like the cost of it, like 3 months before I did it.
Yeah.
And I was like, saving this money. I was saving this money for something else, and then I'd spend it all on like a lawyer and visa and stuff. And I was like, I'm paying for some politician's Mercedes.
Exactly. But yeah, it's kind of fucking bullshit, man. Like the way that they used to, I'd speak to, and living in St Kilda, you speak to so many people that want to stay, and people would say, oh, my job that I'm qualified in isn't on the list of things now.
Yeah.
So that whole thing becomes a rort in itself.
And there's so many weird jobs are on there.
Yeah,
like,
they keep changing them.
Like, I remember seeing hairdresser on there. I'm like, what? You have a lack of hairdressers in Australia? Like,
Yeah.
do I can shave someone's head? Does that qualify me? Like, you know what I mean? There was nothing I qualified on there to do, and
Grime MC wasn't on
no,
the list.
it wasn't on there, unfortunately. So yeah, and the amount of paperwork and stuff you got to send in, and like, I'm lucky my wife kept a lot of stuff, like things like, Christmas cards, Valentine's cards.
They asked for that shit.
We'd send them private stuff, just text messages between us from like a long time ago. She came back to England on holiday with my family and stuff, things like that, and they see those photos, but then they still rejected me. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, this is a real elaborate ruse if I'm faking this. Like,
Yeah,
so-
and what a fucking weird job for someone to sit there sifting through your personal shit to figure out if something's legit or not.
Even the health checks you have to do, like you have to do like a HIV test, you have to do tuberculosis TB test and stuff. And I remember going for these, and it was like being in like a cattle market. Like they put me into a room with like 10 other dudes, and we all had to I don't know whether they still do this now. It just seems so strange, but we all had to take our tops off, like, and line up in a queue one by one in front of this X-ray thing, whatever.
Wow.
And I was like, this is so strange. Like, it was weird, very weird.
But at the end of the day, you got your citizenship and now you're here. Does that mean that you get all the rights as someone who was born here? You get like like you can bulk bill medical stuff and all that sort of stuff?
So with the Medicare stuff, they have like a reciprocal arrangement before. So no matter what visa I was on, I was able to access some Medicare.
Oh, that's
like,
all right,
yeah,
yeah.
not all of it, but some of it. But there are other things like that getting the citizenship helps you with, some tax issues and stuff, and the voting, being able to vote and things like that. But it's just having that security, I think, is the main thing. Like, you know what I mean? You always, even when you're a permanent resident, you've always got that thing in the back of your mind, like, this could all be over tomorrow if someone decides it, or if you do something stupid, or you get caught for something stupid, and I remember applying. I remember at the time applying for the citizenship. I'm like, fuck, are they going to go through all my songs and listen to my lyrics and hear something maybe they don't agree with or something,
Yeah.
So I went on this like mass
Cull.
no, not cull, but I cleared my name off the internet, like, of a million things.
Wow.
Like, so my name is out there, but it's not what it was, And I remember this. It's funny. This one, that website Discogs.
Mm-hmm.
So someone had put my real name on there as song credits or whatever, under Fracture. And I remember like logging onto the website and creating an account to message this guy. I was like, can you take this down? Can you take my name? Can you just delete my name, please? And he wouldn't do it.
What? But just like, no.
He was like, nah, man, like, this is how Discog works, like, whatever. I was like, look, please, I just would appreciate if you just do it. He did it eventually, like, but I was like, man, like, so I've really, really tried hard to scrub everything. Like, I don't give a shit now because I'm a citizen, but, at the time, I'm like, what if they find something that they consider is like, anti-government or something,
or a reference to drugs or something.
Because there's basically like a character test, like they have to, are you a good character? And that's so subjective. It's like that person in the office that day decides, oh yeah, I don't know about this guy. Like, I'm not sure. Like,
Yeah.
they don't have to really they don't have to justify.
They could be
anything to
having a
you.
fucking bad day, man.
Yeah, 100%.
You know,
You
and
know,
then, no,
you know, and I'm sure they have quotas as well. You know, so it's like, oh, sorry, we can only put one extra person through this week. Oh, this person smokes weed, or you know what I mean, or something. You know what I mean?
Fine
Because they have
line.
a question like, have you ever taken drugs? You know what I mean? It's like.
Yeah.
Find me someone who hasn't taken a drug, like
Yeah.
you know what I mean. It's a ridiculous. Some of the questions are just absurd. Like, but yeah, so that wait, and when you apply, you got to wait a long time. I think I waited like 9-10 months,
Yeah.
and it's like fuck, you're just waiting and waiting, and then your lawyer calls you. It's sorry, you've been rejected, and it's like got to appeal that and give them more information. And
Is it? But it's the same goes for an Aussie that wants to go live in the UK. Like it seems to be the same everywhere, except for New Zealand. Australia is probably the only place you can just stay as long as you fucking want.
yeah. So yeah, it's very frustrating, you know.
Let's go back on your personal journey. So 2006, you're not a permanent resident then, but you are here now for the foreseeable future. So you're doing your own thing. You're meeting Checkmate. You're kind of building something. What happens next on your own sort of personal musical journey?
Well, so in the time between 2002 and 2006, that was when I met Scotty Hines and Byron
When you're back home.
back home in England.
Yeah.
So I mentioned another guy before, Benny Kidd. So I had this group called Nine High with Brinks and Benny, which then developed into being Byron and Scotty in it.
Yep.
And so Benny actually he did like a college course with Scotty, like a videography course or something.
Yep.
And then Ben was in Australia with me in 2002, and he went to Sydney like on a little trip or something, and he bumped into Scotty on the train,
Yeah.
like randomly. So Scotty's from England. They knew each other from England.
Yeah.
And Scotty just happened to be doing a year out in Australia as well, and they bumped into each other randomly on the train in Sydney.
Yeah.
And like they were like, "What are you doing out here? What are you doing out here?" And like then started talking, you know. And Scotty was like, "Oh yeah, I'll rap now." Like, Ben's like, "Oh yeah, so do I," you know. And then we'd all linked back together when we went back to England, sort of thing. And then with Byron, we met Byron in the smoking room at a drum and bass rave. He was like the grime guy. He was the one that really kind of introduced me properly to grime and stuff.
Yep.
You know, he didn't come from any sort of hip hop background. He'd never heard Wu-Tang, never heard Mobb Deep, any of that.
Yep.
And so we introduced him to that, and he introduced us to the grime sort of thing.
That's cool.
And then and then he was always too lyrical for garage and all that. So and then we started making music in England together and just did loads of gigs, recording in my kitchen and putting out stuff. And yeah, I always had this plan to go out to Australia, and I was like, you know, we should all go together. Like, you know, you'll fucking love it. Like, it's you know, we can. You guys should get a year visa like I did. Let's go and fucking do some gigs and just have fun. You know, I was like, I know a couple of these guys. You know,
You've already got a foot in the door.
Yeah. And then Flagrant. Do you know Flagrant?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
So he was always like, if you come back, I'll get you gigs. I'll help you out. You know, I'll put you on. Rah, rah, rah. So we arranged to come back in like June 2006, and he said, all right, there's a tour with Bliss and Esso in July 2006. Do you want to do it? Like, and we said, yep. So we went
and they've got big label support at this sort of stage
as
well. Yeah.
So we arrived, and then within a month of arriving, we went and did this like Victorian tour, like played all these like small towns, like Shepparton, Ballarat,
like a regional tour.
And that just fucking just blew us away. Like we're on tour, like you know what I mean.
That would have
like,
been a spin out for the other guys who haven't been here. Like
they were like, what's going on? Like, what do you mean tour? And people get paid, and like it's organised. You know what I mean? So we went and did these regional places. I've probably through that, especially through those early times, probably seen so much of Australia like that maybe some other Australians haven't seen themselves.
Which
you know
is
what I mean?
fucking awesome, and
know,
that's on the record label's dollar, man.
Yeah, I think I went to Shepparton like 4 times in a year.
Yeah.
I haven't been back since. But, and I met Briggs. I remember
I was
meeting
going to
Briggs
say, did
there.
you meet
yeah,
Briggs
yeah,
there?
yeah, I met Briggs there, but, back then, and we'd party and have big benders all night in Shepparton and, got some funny stories from there. So we just basically, they got a house in Collingwood. I was living in Balaclava still, and then I moved to the city, to South Bank, and we just started doing shows everywhere we could, anywhere. We started making a real big buzz, it was like the English lads, like the 3 English lads, a lot of people were talking about
You're
us.
putting the UK on the back of the name.
People were, it was everywhere we go, Some people still do that now with me, which is funny. And, and I think we made a real big impact in those times. We had a mixtape that we just released just as we got there, and we were selling them and handing them out for free everywhere we went. And I remember there was a Monday night, I think it was Monday night event in I can't remember the name of the venue, but in Fitzroy somewhere, and we go there every Monday and smash it up, and just doing shows all over and just recording as much as we could, and them meeting M-Phases through Flagrant and doing stuff with him, and just went from there. The grime we would have grime songs in our sets, but we weren't really recording any grime as such. It was still, that was still kind of, it was hard to bridge that gap between the hip hop and grime, but we were trying. I remember playing Bliss and Esso, we played them some grime stuff in 2006, and didn't really.
They didn't get it.
No, weren't really.
Not even
weren't
Debris
really
was
into
getting it. No.
No, Tariq, DJ, kind of vibed with it a little bit, but it was still very. It was so new, for a lot of people to hear that kind of the production sounded kind of just simplistic and a bit amateurish. To people who were used to that big kind of Just Blaze type production, you know what I mean, and big sample based stuff.
And they were you're talking Bliss and Esso back then were commercial Aussie hip hop's going to get. So something that sounds a bit different is going to be totally
and we were we were just basically just doing a lot of gigs with people. I'm very good friends with Reason.
Yeah.
And he took me on tour as his hype man.
Oh yeah.
Straight away, so I ended up going all around the country, with him playing all the obese block parties back in the day. So doing Sydney,
they'd wind
Brisbane,
up at the Espy, didn't they? That's where the sort of the homecoming was for the block.
No, back then they had one at what was the place? Is it the big place that got burnt down in St Kilda?
Oh, the Palace.
Yes, remember there was two. There was
the Palais and the Palace.
Yeah,
I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, they had a massive one. I was like, this is fucking huge. I couldn't believe
that had multi-room setups.
Yeah, and they had 2 rooms in there, and it was crazy. I was like, it was just insane to come from doing nothing to now being on these massive gigs.
Yeah,
and I was just the hype man, but it enabled me to meet a lot of people, make a lot of connections, and hanging out with hoods and stuff and Funkles and things like that back then.
And Aussie hip hop was
it was
popping off then.
Yeah, it was massive, and I had that point of difference being English, so it kind of really helped me.
How did that go with the hype man stuff, with the different accent and that sort of thing? Were you doing the backups and that?
Yeah.
Did it work? Obviously it did, but was it a bit different to start with?
Yeah. I definitely had to change some of the tones on some of
that's
my
what
stuff.
I'm thinking.
You know what I mean? I definitely changed. But Reason would always let me do a couple of songs in the sets as well. And obviously Brig. And 563 was the DJ as well, and Briggs would come through. He was doing hype man stuff as well sometimes, or we'd do sets together, all 4 of us. That was a real interesting time, because that really, it just blew me away to go from it felt like a professional scene and things were happening. I remember doing one of the block parties, sponsored by Adidas, and they were like, you can go to the Adidas store and just get whatever you want to wear, and I was like, what the fuck? They're going to give us free clothes. Oh my God, I didn't even like Adidas, but You know, I was like, yeah, I was just blown away with all that stuff, you know.
And then there's a label talk start to happen there, or what do you do? Like, you're obviously doing it kind of DIY, but what's the next sort of step?
So
there?
we started recording Nine High album. We did that out in Oakley with 7-6, who is another English guy. So we met, when we came over, there was like 7-6 and 5-6-3, a lot of numbers. We all came over together, not together, but we all came over at the same time. And so we naturally gravitated towards each other. And yeah, so we started recording this album with 7-6, and we were like, what did we do with it? We ended up putting it out on a label called Teos. I don't know whether you remember. It was very small. It was a small, basically independent label that was run by a guy who was friends with Flagrant, who then became very good friends with myself. And you know, he put out, was it Infallible? Do you remember? Would you remember that? It was like just very small releases back then, and he offered to finance it basically. You know, and he financed the videos, financed it all. We had it all ready to go. We put it out, and then a week after we put it out, the distributor Amped went bankrupt.
Fuck.
And yeah, we never saw a penny from it. The record never really got properly distributed. I remember this weird story, but a friend of ours used to work, or a friend of a friend used to work, basically clearing out offices, like something like that. And he ended up having to clear out the Amped offices,
Like a liquidation type
yeah,
thing?
yeah. And he found boxes and boxes of our album.
You get them back?
No.
What?
But yeah, I know, fuming to this day. Yeah, he was like, oh no, it's my job. I need to, you know. I was
Come
like,
on,
yeah,
man.
I know. So so that album never really kind of. There's a few physical copies out there. It never made it to.
So someone's sitting on boxes of them though, like from that
Probably, yeah, I
liquidation
guess
thing?
so. Yeah, who knows? Yeah, who knows where
warehouse
they are?
somewhere,
Yeah, it's probably they've probably been destroyed. I don't know. So that was a real bit of a downer, because like that was, you know, it was a good album.
But
And
until then, everything's smooth sailing though. So
Yeah.
I guess there's got to be some bumps in the road at
Yeah,
some
yeah,
stage.
yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. So and then Byron went home back to England. His visa ran out.
Yep.
And he always had it that he wanted to do music in England rather than over here, you know.
Yeah,
He
it was a
wanted-
holiday.
Yeah. So, but Scotty was like, yeah, I want to stay in Australia. And so he found a way to stay. And then, yeah, we started just working me and him together. And that's when we kind of started doing stuff with Smash Brothers, and how that came about, you know, because we were always friends with them and with all the BTE guys, you know. They were probably the guys we gravitated towards the most. You know, they're into the same kind of hip hop, and they're, you know, we hang out with a lot with the Obese crew as well, but it wasn't really the style of hip hop that I was sort of necessarily into. And
Obese was pretty mainstream then as far as Aussie hip hop went.
it was a very particular sound to it, you know what I mean? You know, but so we always found ourselves with the BT lot. You know, we were always drinking on the street with them, and, you know, and you know, just freestyling and little like friendly battles and stuff. And Dime and Murky were the only guys that really knew about grime, you know. And so,
well, even when I had Checkers on the show, he said at the start, he's like, "What you guys are doing is awesome. I don't really understand it, but it's awesome, you know."
yeah.
Like he couldn't quite at the start get his head around it, but eventually he does.
I remember trying to get him on a grime tune in like 2005, and he's like, because we were back in England, and I was able, you know, because we'd obviously met before and we'd hung out and, you know, kept in contact. He was like, it's not really my thing, you know what I mean? You know, so, but he's always been hugely supportive of it, you know, always massively supportive of it, and, you know, he's done so much for me over the years, you know what I mean? So.
It's such an intelligent guy and such a humble dude, man.
Yeah. I was thinking how cool it would be to see like a discography of everything that he's recorded
Yeah.
in the scene. It would be insane.
Yep.
Like he's everything on BTE, just forget about that. Everything else that people don't even realise maybe that people record with him, you know?
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
just insane. You know. And like I said to you before the show, it was cool hearing his show and hearing him, you know, that he'd skateboard and things like that, you know, because I didn't even know that, like, even though he's one of our best mates, you know.
Yeah.
It was cool hearing different things like that, you know.
Yeah. That's the whole idea of the show, man, to learn, to get insight into these people that you know.
Yeah. So, so we started doing the Smash Brothers stuff, and with, you know, like I say, Murky and Dime were, because they're all from Canberra, that whole BT lot, but, you know, Dime, I know, was into he was into like a lot of the rave sort of stuff back in the day, and I know he emceed at some raves and stuff like that. Murky was always hugely into reggae and some dancehall as well. And we just
They felt like they didn't fit into the
Yeah.
umbrella of Aussie sort of hip hop.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, and I think so. We just gelled like that, and it just made sense to two Aussies, two English. We were hanging out all the time at Dime's house, and all we'd listen to was grime.
Yeah.
So we were like, why don't we do a grime,
Yeah.
do a grime thing, and it was around the time sort of dubstep started getting big.
It was huge for a moment, wasn't it? Yeah.
So around 2008, there started being dubstep parties in, or maybe 2000, there's probably some earlier, but I remember like 2007, 2008, I started noticing dubstep parties happening. And obviously that's an English genre again, and so I was like, I just gravitated towards that, and like MCs, there was no MCs really that were working on it, and being English, it just, it just worked with me, and so I started getting hit up by promoters and started doing all these parties.
It's like Wobble and stuff.
Yeah, Wobble.
Yep.
So I did Wobble for like 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Scotty, we just randomly bumped into the DJ who was one of the main guys there in my apartment block. He happened to live in the same apartment block.
Yeah.
And heard our English voices, started talking. Next thing you know, he's like, yeah, I'm a dubstep DJ. Come down. Do you want to come down and do a set? And yeah, it worked, and that was just like.
Was it at the Nightcat then?
Yeah, that was just crazy events they were. It was like, we'd play every month for like 4 years, like midnight till 2 a.m.
Yeah, wow.
Like 2 hours of a set, and it was just insane. Like it's a real shame that those events weren't documented.
Yeah.
More so because they were packed. There were sellouts every month, like lines around the block. Yeah, it was really insane time, and that was where we really started pushing the grime, because we were making the DJs play a couple of grime tunes here.
Mm-hmm.
Grime fits with dubstep at the same tempo. Essentially, it works, and at the time, a lot of grime MCs were working on dubstep as well.
The
so,
double time thing. Works
like
with it.
140 BPM, and again, it's just another one of those English genres that's come from sound system culture. It's just how it's developed. You wouldn't have had dubstep without drum and bass and grime and garage. They're all so interlinked.
Yeah, 100%. And then so that inevitably kind of comes to an end. Is that what happens with Wobble? If it was such a strong powerhouse as a scene, as a night, what happened?
Well, I got told I wasn't allowed to MC there anymore. I just got a text message randomly from the promoter one day, said I've still got it somewhere because I was fuming. He was like, "We've really enjoyed having you. You're a really good MC and you bring a good vibe, but the crowd you bring is not what we want there." And
undesirables.
Yeah, and there's lots of police there undercover now, and everyone's smoking weed and graffiti. And there was basically at the time, 2010, there was I don't really remember. There was a lot of like young graffiti crews running amok in Melbourne, like hanging out in down at the library steps, and then come down to Wobble. And they'd be rolling people in the toilets, all sorts. There was like a lot of, box cutters getting pulled on people and stuff, and everyone was smoking weed inside, and there was just it started to get in a lot of trouble. And instead of, and I didn't encourage it, but I was, I'd shout them out. And
comes
stuff,
with the territory.
You know what I mean? And so it comes with the territory, and so this is where, there's two distinct scenes. The hip hop kind of side of it started creeping into that dance music scene, and they didn't like it.
Yeah.
So they shut us down, and they told us, we couldn't play anymore, and that was the end of that. And then it folded not long after, not because of us not being there, but I think you can't have those things, can't go on forever.
No,
it's the end of an era.
They run their lifespan, and yeah. And then so, aside from that, you start to do some ciphers that I start noticing then with other sort of local, when I say local, Aussie dudes and that sort of thing. Are they reaching out to you guys because you're sort of at the forefront of this sort of stuff?
I was trying to organise those myself. So originally it was like, so when I come over in England, it was always a big radio scene, radio freestyles and sets and ciphers and stuff. And I was like, we need this over here. I want this a bit more,
to push each other.
Yeah, like there was stuff out there. I remember when I first came in 2007. I remember stuff on like Bias's show. He'd have free, you know, that kind of stuff. And I was like, but I want us to film them and want us to put them out on YouTube and stuff. So I reached out to people on Triple R, you know, Roscoe and Felix and stuff like that, and said, "Can we come through and do some ciphers?" And I just send out invites to everyone, any MC I knew, basically. A lot of people didn't want to do it. They didn't want to, you know.
Really?
So a lot of people either they don't want to put themselves in competition with other MCs.
Yeah.
They might have been scared to, or you know, or they don't want to put themselves out there
Live.
They like to be very. They like to
orchestrate it.
Yeah, and so, which I found really interesting.
But every artist works differently.
Yeah.
You know? So some people just aren't comfortable.
No,
in that.
I think that's bollocks. I think if you're an MC,
Okay, that's true.
Yeah, I think if you're an MC, you should be able to fucking hold your own. If you can't, then you know, step aside. Like, I think it's hip hop's competitive. You know what I mean? And it drives the culture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you can bounce off each other.
Yeah.
And that's how you build something.
Yeah, and there was some sick videos, 6 times, man. Like, you know, I think as an MC, you've got to be able to hold it down live. You can't be a studio. I think there's a problem now. There's a lot of studio MCs. They can't actually spit live. You know, and that's why. And then that's when you start getting people rapping over their own vocals at shows and all that rubbish. You know, which I really think is just horrendous.
Yeah.
You know, I think
you lose the authenticity.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's a live thing for me. You know, I'd rather hear a radio set than a song.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
To be honest, and so
that's for lack of a better term, it's that griminess, it's that grittiness.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So yeah, we started trying to push that as much as we can and trying to organise those, and you know, Roscoe and Felix were good enough to let us come and do those, and we had some really good shows on Triple R back then.
Yeah, and then you're meeting a lot of other MCs. I'm guessing because you're spearheading this. I'm guessing you've got dudes on socials and whatever now that are going, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Sending you fucking their own sort of little videos and shit.
Yeah. No, people were really, you know, and if you look at some of those lineups, they're just so random. The people that you see together, you know, there's one with there's us, with Autism, with 360 and Pez.
Yep.
You know, there's Morns, Fluent Form, Guts. There's all these, you know, 1-6. It's just a whole different styles. You know what I mean? And you know, I think that's important. You know.
Yeah, I think, but back then 360 wasn't doing his super pop stuff. He was just trying to rap then. And
he's very, you know, a lot of punchlines.
Yeah, he was also doing his freestyle battles and shit like that.
Yeah. So it worked. You know, like, you know, they supported us on our show at Revolver. I remember once. That was why we did that video, to promote that show.
Yeah.
So it's funny seeing how mainstream and big he went. Like after that,
huge,
insane. Yeah.
And what about some of the younger guys around that stage that are reaching out to you? You've definitely been you're seeing some young kids that have got a lot of skill happening, like coming through at that sort of time as well.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the main one was Alex Jones, really. Yeah, once he probably, I think I heard him about 2011, 12 maybe.
Was he going by Flea then?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. So it was. I heard him from 2 different places. So I heard it was because he was heavily involved in, you know, graffiti. Maybe he wasn't doing as much graffiti, but he was around a lot of people who were, you know, in quite a prominent crew at the time, and who were causing a lot of trouble in the city. Probably one of the reasons I lost the Wobble show.
Indirectly.
Yeah.
Let's not blame him.
Yeah. No, not him. But I mean, yeah. So then, who I you know, became good friends with a lot of them afterwards, you know, and laughed and joked about that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so I was hearing about him from the graffiti side of people who were telling me, oh, there's this young kid, you used to hear him freestyle at parties and stuff, he's mad. And then at the same time, Gecko from Crate Cartel was telling me, oh, I've got this young kid coming to the studio and he's talking about grime. I was like, oh, really? Send it over. Like, and he sent me this like very like early basic sort of grime thing. And I was just like, but I heard something in it and I reached out to him, and then I was just blown away by how the potential at the start of what he could do, you know what I mean? And then within 2-3 months, he his skill level just went up exponentially, like, and it was insane. And and I started bringing him around, everyone, and and everyone was the same. Everyone was just blown away,
Yeah.
And then
Was it
anyone who heard him was just like, shit, this kid's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like,
Do you think his work ethic, or was he's just a naturally gifted
yeah.
MC?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Like, don't get me wrong, he worked, he put that, but he didn't. He didn't need to work like as hard as others. His skill just was evident, immediately. Like, and people were just like really drawn to him,
Yeah.
and especially people his age,
He spoke to a different generation.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And then he just took to grime like unbelievably so.
Yeah.
Yeah, he came from he was hip hop background, but as soon as he got into grime, he just got it.
Yeah.
More so than anyone I'd seen. Like, and we started bringing him to sets on Kiss FM, and he was just, he was just this like little like 17-year-old kid with like fucking cold sores on his face and and shit, and just fucking drinking lean at like 17. No one else knew what he was. No one even heard of that shit back then. Like, and it was just he's just big skill, that guy.
Yeah, and it must be, I guess, good for your personal. It's pushing you when you're seeing young kids come through that are good and that are fucking showing promise, and that's got to help you as someone who's mature and respected in the scene to push you as well.
Oh, 100%. And it's, like I say, grime and hip hop. But is very competitive. You don't want to be the weak link. You know what I mean? So, and you got this young 17-year-old kid who's kind of showing everyone up. Like, so it definitely ignites the fire.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So
he's on your side. He's part of your sort of your crew. But are other MCs going, fuck, man, this kid, like, is he ruffling feathers because he's that coming in?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Really?
Because he's he didn't give a shit. Like, you know what I mean? And he was he's very he's a humble kid, but he came in big brash with a big ego as well, and he's only small as well, but he maybe because of his size, he kind of felt he had to kind of be this bigger character, and he stood out more than anyone, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And we haven't heard some music from him for a while, though. Hopefully soon, maybe. I don't know.
Look, yeah, don't want to. I can't go. Who knows? It's a difficult one. It's trials and tribulations of Alex Jones.
Yeah, true.
It's I think everyone would love to hear it. And I tell him all the time. I'm going to see him later today. And I tell him all the time, what an incredible talent he is. He's the best MC this country has produced. I
think.
A
lot of people say that too.
No doubt about it. He's influenced a generation. There wouldn't be half the styles you hear some people do. You wouldn't have that without Alex. The amount of times he's been bitten by people, the amount of times he's been copied is unbelievable. And I don't think even he realizes how he's looked upon by other people and what an amazing talent he is. He's one of the few people, I think, that can stand head and shoulders on a grime set over in England with some of the best.
Yeah.
Like, as far as I'm concerned, like, Getz is like the best technical grime MC, and he's seen Alex and like was blown away and commented on it. Like, what I mean? And you don't get that with many people. So we'd all love to see it, but you can't push it. You know what I mean? I got a million unreleased songs on this phone of his, which I would love to play everyone. And people hit me up all about it all the time.
He doesn't want to put them out.
Nah, like, it's so
Really?
it's until you can't push, you can't force it,
Yeah.
But hopefully one day.
Yeah, I think a lot of heads want to hear that, man. Yeah.
Yeah, he's as big as anyone's got. He deserves to be bigger. His talent is better. There isn't a big name over here who can touch him.
Yeah.
In terms of skill. Put them side by side with him, and he'll make everyone look stupid.
Yeah. Hopefully one day, man. You'd sort of touched on that he's influenced a whole lot of other. Who are some other MCs that were, maybe the younger generation that were coming out that were impressing you as well? Maybe not as much as him, but just other MCs that were impressing you too.
I I think Guts at the time, back then, so we're talking like 2012, 13 times, he's probably, he's another one that really impressed me, his passion, like his, his emotion and the heart that he put into music. Again, someone who probably didn't push music as much. I think very often the people who are better at who are the best musicians are the most tortured souls, you know what I mean? And the people,
like any artist.
yeah, and who are not concerned about the commercialism or the fame, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is why, it's that age-old saying, what is it? Talent and hard work. What's the one? Talent and hard. Talent. You work hard. Working hard beats talent every time. Or if talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah.
So I think he was the other standout from that generation. You know, and then there was a big gap for me until sort of like 2017 times, and then you start seeing, then the Nerves, Wombats, and Shadows and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and Nerve not only as a MC, he's also a producer, man. And that guy puts in a lot of work.
Yeah, I think he's a real huge talent. If you see him live as well, he's someone who really holds it down. Shadow as well. Mm-hmm. I think that both of them, go back to people rapping over their vocals. You don't see them two guys do that. They hold it down properly. They can do it the old school way. Yeah. Don't need hype men. You know what I mean? Nerve as a producer, as an MC as well, but as a producer, I think he's so versatile, and he's a world-class producer. You know what I mean?
He's making poppy songs, he's making grimy songs, he's making hip hop songs,
and he's got his head screwed on. You know what I mean? He's clever. He knows what he's doing. You know what I mean? He plans things and he puts them into reality.
I've never met him, but he strikes me as the kind of guy that would probably be good at whatever he tries to do, and music is just the route that he took.
Yeah. He's good. He's good. He beat me in a penalty shootout in football, which I was quite.
Is he a good footballer?
He's a good footballer. I think I would have had him 20 years ago. But
there you go. That would. Did you document that? That would have been pretty.
It
cool
is. I think it is. I think it is filmed. I think Kyle Golly from No One Network filmed it when we were up in Brisbane for the Apocalypse tour. We organised a penalty shootout because he was talking a lot of shit, and so I'm old enough to be his dad, so you know what I mean. You got to give me a little bit of.
Were you both
leeway.
Were you keeping each other?
No,
or you were just taking the strikes.
Taking the strikes. I think it was his sister who was the goalkeeper. His sister played. I think Nerve coaches his sister's team.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I think he's played football for a long time. Like, he's good.
Yeah.
I played it for a long time, but big gaps from when I stopped 20 years ago. So I was thinking about getting back into it recently. I was like, is it worth the injuries though?
Yeah, five-a-side's good, man.
I think you get more injured in five-a-side. To be honest, I think you can do. I've seen the people lose teeth and and.
You can fuck your knees.
I think it's not a good idea at my age. Probably, I stick to watching it.
In East St Kilda, there, man, they had the outdoor five-a-side for a while.
Yeah, I used to play. I used to play in Albert Park. I used to play 11-a-side, Albert Park.
Yep.
I remember me and Benny. We played. So we, the Hustlers guy. He brought us in, and we'd play for his Jewish team, and he'd bring us in, and we smashed everyone. We fucking ran through them, and I remember him. He was like, "I bring you the English. I bring you the English." We were hat tricks every week,
That's it. I've had, when I was playing five-a-side, I'd have mates of mine that would fill in.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, I'm not that good." I'm like, "You're English, man. You being average is better than us being good."
I think it's changing now, as football gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But particularly back then, it wasn't, people weren't playing it as much. But now I think it's the most played sport
for sure, man.
in the country.
And you're a Tottenham fan. There's an Aussie connection there as well.
I am. Yeah, Postecoglou. Big Ange.
He's doing all right.
He's smashing it. He's a breath of fresh air. He's making people proud to be, Tottenham fans again, because it's difficult. It's a difficult life being a Tottenham fan.
Yeah, it's like they've always been. Can't remember if you've been relegated in recent times, but you've never really sort of hit those.
We've always been considered one of the big five, but in terms of the size of the club and the money that they generate, but not in terms of what they win.
Yeah.
So we have a great history, kind of before my time. But in the last, since I said in the last 30 years, I haven't really done much, unfortunately. So always, and so it's difficult, but you can't choose who you support, and and you can't. It would be a bit boring being a Man City supporter as well, to be honest. Like winning all the time and just boring. I find it a bit boring, football. You know what I mean? It's a bit. It's an emotional thing being a Tottenham fan. But I love the team. I love football, and I love watching them. Getting up. It's a bit annoying being over here having to get up at ridiculous times in the morning to watch a game, but
that does.
Especially when you lose, like. Played the other. Who was it? When we lost to Man City the other week, and I was up at silly o'clock and for a shit game, and it just ruins your day for the rest of the day. But yeah, Postecoglou's killing it. Like I wasn't sure when he came over, to be honest.
He proved himself with Celtic.
Though. Yeah, he did. But I still, wasn't sure. I was like, an Aussie manager. I don't know. But yeah, he's. Couldn't be happier. He's killing it, and he seems like such a good guy as well.
Yeah, man.
He seems he's. I love watching his press conferences. So
and it seems like the fans over there, they're chanting.
They
his
love
name.
him. They love him.
He's like a cult figure now.
Yeah. Some of the songs about him, Like, have you heard the Postecoglou?
I've heard a couple.
There's a few. So. Yeah, big Ange, killing it.
All right, so let's get back on track.
Nerve's a Tottenham fan as well.
Is he?
Yeah.
All right. Man. I'd love to have Nerve on the show one day if he was in Melbourne. I know he's not from Melbourne, but I think he'd be super interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back on your journey. We're talking the early 20 teens here. So what else is kind of happening then? You're doing your ciphers. You're trying to get that sort of live MC stuff happening. You're pushing that.
Yeah, and then the Smash Brothers stuff with so many Diane, Murky, and Scotty. We're doing a lot of basically any dubstep event that came to Melbourne. We were at so all the big internationals. We played at Scream and Banger, N-Type, all these, and my friend Affix was running a night called Heavy in It. Which is sick, heavy.
Which is a sick name as well.
Yeah,
I used to see the posters. I'm like, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and basically from then it was like, I was like, that was kind of what tipped me over to just pushing the grime more, and was like, okay, well we got to start doing this, and we were doing the grime sets at Heavy in It, and then Affix. I said to Affix, what about we put on 100% grime night? And he was like, okay, because he's the guy who had the connections and the clubs and stuff like that. So we started putting on, I think we did a couple of smaller things under different names. And then we came up with the name 50/50, which kind of two things. There was a Wiley song called 50/50, which was cool. And when we also saw it as the 50/50 being DJ, MC, because I think the dubstep events were cool, but it was still primarily about the DJ. Mm-hmm. The MC was just there to kind of host and toast and whatnot, but we wanted to make sure that the MCs had equal footing on the events. And the relationship between the DJ and MC is so important. Mm-hmm. You can't have a grime event without a DJ. Whereas you can go to a hip hop show and there might not be a DJ. They're just play off a CD and someone could just press play. You can't do that at a grime event. It's all about that live mixing and about the drops and stuff. And that's where you catch the excitement. That's where you get the reloads and the renewed energy from a new beat coming in.
Yeah, so. and it's basic that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's impromptu. It's like jazz. It's like you don't know where it's going. It's going wherever it's fucking going. That sort of thing.
Yeah, that's why you don't know. There's nothing planned. We're not doing. So some people would come to the events and they'd be like, "Can you do this song and that song?" It's like we don't do any songs. Yeah. You might hear the bar from that song, and that's what's exciting when you hear the bar that you recognise over a different beat, or you hear a beat a million times, but it's been mixed with another beat, and then you just hear a little snippet, and then it drops. It's like, and that's the hype of grime, that energy. And so we came up with this 50/50, and then. Because he was doing all the dubstep internationals, and so he had links to all the agencies in England with all the DJs, so who also represented grime artists. So he managed to get a guy called Silencer or Teddy Music, aka Silencer, to be our first thing. So I ended up having one of the best producers in grime at the first 50-50 event, and that was like just blew us away. Like we were able to put on like a nationwide tour like for him. You know, he played in Brisbane, Perth, Sydney, and Melbourne. And that was like the first time we really had MCs just doing all grime night.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing but grime.
Yeah.
Like, and it was like, and I remember looking around and I was going to Dime, can you believe it? We're doing grime. Like it's all grime. It's not just a little excerpt in a dubstep night or, you know, a hip hop night.
You're pioneering a whole fucking thing, though.
It was just madness. But before, actually, I think it's a really important event like I mentioned before that, which was about a year before. Wiley was coming to do his first Australian tour, and so we got them. Naturally we got the support. There wasn't anyone else in Melbourne that was going to support Wiley.
You're the go-to.
Yeah, and he came with Skepta.
Yeah,
Skepta was his hype man back then, you know, and
some big names coming.
Yeah, Skepta's was, you know, but no one. People knew, maybe have heard the name Wiley. No one knew who Skepta was.
Really, at that
2009.
Stage? Oh, sorry. You know? So we're going back a bit.
It's just slightly, yeah. And then Wiley's a very interesting character. If you know anything about Wiley, he can be hard to deal with at times. He didn't turn up to the show.
Wow.
He stayed in Sydney. It was his birthday. He was like, I'm just going to spend my birthday in Sydney.
How big was this show that was lined up?
Prince of Wales.
Yeah, so it's like 2,000 people.
Yeah,
I doubt. You can push it in front of you if you're comfortable there, though.
Yeah, I doubt it would have sold anywhere near to. It wouldn't have sold out or anything like that.
Yeah.
So then we only found out on the morning of the gig that he decided he wasn't going to come. Right. He stayed in Sydney. So we had been asked to get to go and meet Skepta before the gig in his hotel. So we went to the hotel and meet Skepta, and he told us, "Oh, Wiley's not coming." We're like, "What the fuck?" We're like, "Well, you're here," and he's like, "But we couldn't put on the Prince of Wales gig because there's no Wiley and no one knows who Skepta is."
Right.
So I was like, "What about if we put on a grime event tonight and we find a venue? Would you come down?" And he was like, "Yeah." He was like super chill, super cool, like keen for it. So we phoned up Laundry. They had nothing on that night. They said, "Yeah, you can put on a night tonight." Like, so we basically rushed together in like 2-3 hours an event to put on that night. Just put it up on I don't know whether it was Facebook or and the Oz hip hop forums and said Skepta coming tonight, and there was probably about 40 people came through. He did it for free. We gave him all the ticket money, and he just gave it back to us. He said, "Don't worry about it." Like he was just like, he couldn't believe that there was anyone who knew about grime in Australia.
Were the punters mostly English? Or
no, not at all.
Aussie punters?
Yeah, it was mainly Aussie punters. Like we didn't know how to reach the English. If I thought about it, we would have gone to the backpackers.
St Kilda, the Prince of Wales. There's a lot of English there.
Yeah, we would have hit up all the backpackers, but it wasn't. It was like, if you see the photo, you see in the front row is Muscles and Carney.
Yeah,
like
really?
Like with no tattoos, like back in the day, like and they,
we got to find that.
Yeah. And that Muscles has got his t-shirt over his head, like, and there was like 30, 40 people there, and it was like Skepta playing at the Laundry for 30 to 40 people, like. He played with grime playing. He couldn't believe there was grime, and then he was even more blown away that there was local MCs doing grime. Like I remember when we did our set, he ran on stage and pulled the track back and pulled a reload and stuff, and we partied Laundry with Skepta that night and had a mad time, and it was like, it was. And again, I wish it was documented.
Yeah.
Like years later when he blew up worldwide, I remember and he's getting put on by big promoters. They're like, Skepta coming to Australia for the first time. And it's like, no. He was at fucking Laundry on Johnston Street playing to 30 people.
Yeah.
And that was MySpace days, because I remember the day after the gig, he put up photos on MySpace and he thanked everyone. And we were like, wow. So like, we just had Skepta at Laundry to 30 people. So that was like the impetus to make us put on the 50-50.
Sure. When he came back, did he reach out to you again?
No.
He was too big by that stage.
Yeah. Nah. No, that's no. But we got door list at the show, but really? But like then once these artists are so huge, they're represented by like these big agencies, and
beyond them,
there's no chance of us getting on the show. Like they all just look at Instagram figures and the YouTube numbers and stuff, and they see. I think they put on some shitty acts who probably bought their views. Have got no connection to anything. They see us with a couple of thousand YouTube views here and there, and they're like, "Why would we put you on? Like, what are you going to offer?" I was like,
yeah. But at the end of the day, the core following that follows you are more likely to go to a fucking grime gig than some dickheads who have just got some views. At the end of the day.
Well, nowadays, like if there's a smaller grime MC, like who's not like worldwide known, and they come over to the show here. We get booked and we bring the crowd. Rather, you know what I mean? Like we played, I won't say the name of someone, but we played with someone like a couple of years ago who's, as far as I'm concerned, a big name in grime and very well respected name. And we had Smash Brothers and Alex Jones, and everyone left after our set.
Wow.
And it was like, I felt a bit bad for that person. And they come over and they're like, wow, you guys like have got your own crowd here.
Like a cult following.
Yeah. So yeah, going back to that 50-50, that was the first show, Silencer, Teddy, and it was just blew us away that we were able to have live MCs doing just nothing but grime, and we put on a few more after that, but it was really hard to kind of to get people to come along because we had okay numbers, but grime still wasn't a viable thing.
Was the graph community still getting behind it?
Yeah. That was, we were getting a lot of the graph crews, we were getting a lot of the hip hop scene because they knew us from the hip hop scene. But we weren't really getting the dubstep crowd or the drum and bass crowd because they see our crowd and they don't really gel with it. Yeah. They think everyone's just a thug or or they're going to get robbed or something. And it's not, it's not like that because half the crowd's on pills, like, loving each other and whatnot, you know what I mean? So, yeah, which is unfortunate. So it wasn't until really grime blew up on a worldwide scale that we were able to really capitalise it, which was like 2016, 17.
Yeah, and that's when globally grime goes from huge, like it's big.
Yeah, like, so, Stormzy basically, kind of, so...
I think Drake starts to big up people and bring them on stage, and I think he brought Skepta out on stage or something.
Yeah, he does every couple of years. Drake brings the new whatever's big. He's very good at keeping himself relevant in that respect. You know what I mean? So he was big into. I remember he started posting about grime, and then Stormzy blew up with some stuff, and then I remember he came over. We supported Stormzy he played a warehouse on Flinders Street. Yeah. The one. Do you know where Posse Shop played the last show? He played that.
Yeah,
that
it's just like the multi-purpose. Sort
of
space
yeah. And then we started to see people just like the people who weren't old enough back in 2011 now old enough to go out. Yeah. And for them, they growing up hearing grime. It wasn't like they were hip hop people first, and then they had to get turned on to this. They were seeing it firsthand and really getting into it. And so from 2016, that was when I kind of relaunched the 50-50 stuff. And so it was under the 50-50 banner, but we called it Fully Gassed. Mm-hmm. And that was when we started finding the younger MCs, and because for so long it was just us. It was Smash Brothers and Alex Jones, and then in Sydney there was Sam and Nebs. Mm-hmm. That's them. So occasionally we'd have crossover events. We go to Sydney and play over there. At these parties called Reload, which were put on by Chislo, and then they would come over to ours and play. But for what we needed for the scene to grow was more involvement, more MCs. You couldn't just have me, Dime, Scotty Murky, and Alex for so long. It was just every month. You know what I mean? It was and we're getting older as well. You know what I mean? You need that fresh blood of to
was
come
Sydney
in.
Going through the same sort of initial stages with grime as well with their scene? Did it take? Was it quicker here or
I think it was quicker here. Yeah. Like I think they because I guess probably because I don't know, they had events, but they didn't really have any. I don't think they had any solely grime events. Yeah. So they had the Reload parties, but which were drum and bass, dubstep, grime, basically UK bass music. Mm-hmm. there's a lot of UK-based music sort of events everywhere, you know, but there wasn't anything that was just solely grime, really, you know. So I think Sydney probably had the capacity to do it with the amount of backpackers they had, but yeah, it just didn't really.
Yeah.
There's no one putting them on like that.
Melbourne's
So,
a bit more forward thinking with the music sort of stuff, man.
yeah, without starting any rivalry between the two, you know. Like, I'm gonna, you're drawing me in here. I'm gonna get someone saying "fuck you," Sydney, like, you know what I mean?
But I think we are a little bit musically, you know what I mean, a little bit more forward thinking.
Yeah. Like there was definitely people there, like Hazard, so that's them were the originators there to start with, but then Hazard and Sky High as well. Who, Sky High is like, I love Sky High. She's one of the most talented artists in this country, I think. It's a shame she hasn't done more, I think. But I remember going and touring so me, when I released the My Way album in 2013, Sam released his album at the same time, and so we did dual launches, one in Melbourne and one in Sydney. And I remember meeting Hazard outside the Sydney one. He was underage. I don't know how old we would have been then, maybe 13, 14. No, maybe a bit off, 14, 15, something like that. And he was into grime straight away, and he was so it was basically Hazard and That's Them were really the only MCs really pushing it, and a guy called Rappaport as well. Actually, I should shout him out as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it definitely picked up more in Melbourne.
Yeah. That Rappaport he was part of the
Big Village.
City, Big Village.
Yeah, he was onto it from very, very early as well. Yeah, definitely. So we actually had these clash events between Melbourne and Sydney, and so we have Team Melbourne and Team Sydney, and we went over there and we clashed them, and then they came over here and they clashed in Melbourne.
Did you win?
I think so, yeah. I think in Sydney they would say so the first one was in Melbourne, and I don't think they were fully prepared for what we were G'd for this, and we all went out and got full head to toe camo, and we all turned up in full military fatigues, and we were all ready for war. Like, and I don't think they were necessarily prepared for that. So when we went back to Sydney, they were ready, and it was a different thing. So but they were again something that wasn't documented. Like, I think in
hindsight,
one thing I regret about those times is not documenting a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And that is the thing that sort of sucks. I was one of those kids because I love skating. I had my little skate camera.
Yeah.
And I would film stuff, and people were like, "Fuck, Maloney, get that shit out of my face."
Yeah.
But in hindsight, they're the people you wanted someone to be doing that stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But at the time, it's like you don't think about it.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's go back on this somewhat of a messy timeline we've got going on now. 2016, 17, Grime's blowing up worldwide. Stormzy's coming out. He's number one everywhere. Do you guys see instant jumps in your numbers and people that are interested in grime that just audience
definitely,
that wasn't there?
Yeah. Just sort of, start seeing people uploading videos on Facebook and stuff of them rapping over grime beats, basically, and I was like, okay, these younger MCs that I hadn't heard that weren't coming from the hip hop background, So Shadow, I remember seeing Shadow, who was one of the first people, he did this, he was, he's real young looking, and I'd see this thing that just goes absolutely viral everywhere, and it started getting picked up by English channels and stuff. They
So
were
that's when you
reposting
know
it.
it's,
Whoa, so, I'd reached out to him and, it was like, yeah, big up, whatever, and then you start hearing from, these guys hitting me back and being like, oh, fuck, I've been watching you for years. I've been, and you start making all these connections and with some of the younger artists, and Nerve was another one. I started seeing him do freestyles with a guy called Web Shells, who was an English guy, and so every time I'd see someone do a grime freestyle, I'd reach out to them.
Would you feel proud? Would you feel I see
well,
this
there was,
sort of,
definitely. And I was but there was also a feeling if there's something's going to happen, I'm going to be involved. You know what I mean? So I'm going to make sure that I reach out to all these people and we get something happening. Even I reached out to people that I don't even like, or I wouldn't, not those two. I love those two guys. You know what I mean? I reached out to everyone, and had these started I was like, okay, so now we can start putting on events with like loads of names, you know, and yeah, so that's basically what happened. We had the opportunity of the venue, Grumpy's, basically was a friend of ours who had this venue, and I think that's a huge part of why the Fully Gassed events went so good, because Grumpy's, you could just do what you wanted there.
That was in Collingwood?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Smith Street, they had like no rules. Like, you know, they had one security guard who just turned a blind eye to everything. You know, they just let in anyone and everyone, and I think that's what we needed. You know, and so he loved it. He was just like, yeah, do what you want, guys. Like, you know, so, and I was always, and I wanted it to be like, I wanted to make sure it was never about the money. So I was like, I just want to have the best events we can. We can charge money, and it, you know, we could get X amount of people turn up, and you know, I can pay people a little bit here and there, or we could just make it free entry. No one gets paid, and it's just let's try and get everyone in. So we just made a decision at the start. Okay, it's free entry. No one's getting paid. If you want to be on it, you can be on it. Like, you know, but and I just reached out to people, and we started doing those events at Grumpy's, and they just exploded.
Yeah.
You know, like people started coming from all over the country for them because there was nothing like it.
Yeah.
You know, and you had 20 MCs on a lineup for free, and it was just absolute carnage in there. Like, you know, and then we started doing the videos alongside it, which just blew up crazy.
Yeah.
You know, we got shout out No One Network and Kyle because he filmed all those. You know.
So someone did document something. That's the thing.
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, like you need those documentarians. You know, they're so important. You know, I look at what No One Network does, what Kyle does, and you know, he's vital for what we, you know, for what we achieved back then. And without his input, you know, it wouldn't have been half of what it was, you know. Yeah. And that's why, you know, we had the video, the documentary, the Fully Gassed documentary. You know, I was like, because Carl had all this footage, I was like, mate, I want us to do something if this ends tomorrow, I want to be able to look back and say, and just be able to show what we did.
Be proud of it.
Yeah, you know, because you know, I don't want someone else come along and saying they did this or they did that, or, you know, or rewriting history. Like, I want us to, you know, we've already missed out on such a huge chunk that people don't know about, you know, and people will never be able to know about. So I want from here on, let's make sure we document this.
Yeah. And that's awesome that you managed to do that, and then you sort of, and that's, once that's out there, man, it's there.
Yeah. You know, and you know, I don't think anyone can really argue with what those events did and what that time did for like hip hop in this country, or for, you know, hip hop, grime, whatever in this country. That birthed a whole generation of other MCs
who would have seen that for the first time potentially.
Yeah. And look where so many of those MCs went to. You know, have gone from there. You know, that was the first time a lot of people would have been hearing some of these names. Yeah. You know, first times, you know, some of those people ever did shows. First time they ever did, you know, Wombat was the first time he ever did a grime show. I think, you know, there, you know, like, you know, first time he's ever got a reload, that sort of stuff, you know, and so it just, it was a launch pad for a lot of people, you know. A lot of people,
yeah. And that's something you should be super proud of.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. It was a time and a place that was, it was really, really, really fun, man. Like, really a lot of energy.
And at this sort of stage, you're starting to think, look, I want to maybe not take a step back, but there's younger kids coming up, and as you mentioned earlier, it's sort of a bit of a young man's game. You're seeing these young guys, you're like, fuck, it's motivating, but you're like, at what stage are these guys just going to fucking take over and run the whole thing?
Yeah, I guess, you know, it's like, you can't, like I was saying before we started, you know, you're doing this for so many years, and then some people are just starting to hear your name now. I'm like, fuck, I mean, I've already been doing this 20 years. Like, you know,
it's a grind.
It's you know, it's hard to keep motivated to keep doing it year on, year on, year on. And then you get this buzz happening, like when you feel like you're close to like the end. No, not the end, but you know what I mean? It's like, fuck, why didn't this happen 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
You know?
Multiple factors. The internet, you know,
video, internet changed everything. A
lot of factors,
You know, and it's hard, it's you know, I haven't got the same energy and motivation that I would have had 10 years ago, you know, like, and you have different responsibilities and stuff, you know, like I was, you know, spent the last 20 years running around everywhere, you know, running around every night, different places, doing this and that, and
for very little financial.
Yeah, for none. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so you know, And you know, and it is what it is. I'd love to have made a fortune at it, but you know, not. Wouldn't begrudge. I don't regret what we did. You know, we have pioneered something, and that's something that not many people can say.
Totally, man.
You know, so it's great to look back at some of those events, you know, and see what we achieved.
Yeah, and you see some dudes that are absolutely smashing it now, and they would be looking. You know, you look at like someone like Chilling It and that sort of those guys, and like, obviously we mentioned Nerve, but they'd be. I don't know if they'd be doing what they're doing if it wasn't for stuff like the people that sit, you know, putting that shit out there. You know.
Yeah, well, I think it was definitely like a time and a place that brought everyone together in one place, and a lot of relationships were built, you know, at that time. A lot of people met each other for the first time at those events and forged relationships, and you know, and went on to do great things based on that foundation. You know, a lot of people hit me up, or would always be hitting me up to be involved, you know, because they saw what it could do for them, you know. And still to this day, people were hitting me up, when are you doing another 50-50? I want to be involved. And it's like, you know, what's important to me is what kind of got frustrating for me was people kind of using that and using grime for their own end rather than appreciating, you know, grime as a culture and what it is. You know what I mean? I really am kind of annoyed that some people didn't take that and make grime and keep doing grime, or kind of push grime. And it needs like a, you know, a lot of people jumped on drill, different things, which is, you know, fair enough. People do different things, but I feel like there was a big opportunity for some younger heads to come through and do their own 50-50 or something, you know, but you know, it's what it is.
So you're not ruling it out. You might be doing some.
No,
more.
I'd love to, but don't think you're hitting me up and you're going to get on the lineup just because you want eyes on you. You know what I mean? Like, if you like, what frustrates me is people who want to be on it, but you don't make grime or have anything to do with grime.
That makes no sense.
But people will do that. They're like, oh yeah, I can spit double time. I was like, I don't give a fuck. Like, you just, you know, just because you can rap fast, like, it's not just rapping fast. You know what I mean? It's like it's got its own culture. You know. And so if you've never done a grime song, like, people started doing grime songs after that, you know, just to get on to 50-50.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, and then 1-4 get big, and then they want to do drill. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really want you involved.
No.
You know, like
any culture, man, you can't just use it for your own personal benefit and jump out. Then that's just, it's not what it's about.
Yeah. So I would love to do another 50-50 again. It would be very hard though. Like, it's having the right venue that would let you kind of do what you wanted and not have security that's going to like just be too down your neck about stuff. That's one thing. You know, a lot of these names are big names as well. Like now, you know, who say, you know, I've spoken to people, you know, and people are all keen, but you know, it's hard to organise 20 people in the same way. You know, like back then, no one was a name. You know, so everyone's hungry and they see the opportunity that they can get from coming onto that event. They're all like, yep, I'm keen on that. But now a lot of people are big names. You know, they've got other opportunities. They might have paid opportunities. So I get it. You know,
and their management's saying, what do you want to go do this free gig for when you can get X amount per show, you know?
Yeah, as soon as these manager wankers get into the picture as well, you know, and they're like, you know, why are you doing this for free? Like, you know. So I've definitely had some falling outs with some people on that lineup because of some stuff that's happened after that, you know, and you know, it's what it is. It's just, you know, but it kind of, you know, yeah. Oh, if I speak, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, well, don't say anything you don't want to say, man. That's
no. It's all good. I've had some great relationships forged from there, and you know, good people are good people. If you're a good person, then you know, I'll continue to support you. But you know, if you show yourself to be a dickhead, then I won't.
And that's not just in music; that's in life, man.
Yeah, 100%.
Without trying to bring the mood down too much, you have lost some friends along the way. Do you want to talk about that? I think it's you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's, you know, I think everyone does as you get older. You know, it's going to happen more and more, I guess. You know, but you know, it's always hurts more, I guess, when you lose them young. You know, and it goes back to that whole, you know, that tortured soul sort of tortured artist sort of thing we were talking about earlier. You know, Gargoyle and Murky. You know, both incredible characters and artists in their own right. Both very troubled, in certain ways as well. I think Gargoyle, I think, is one of the most incredible lyricists this country has ever produced. And I think his stuff goes over the head of a lot of people as well. He's like an actual Australian poet. I've got some of his song lyrics up in a frame, in my house, and it reads like poetry. You know what I mean? It's just so descriptive of Melbourne, and and it's just that was big loss, and Murky as well. Obviously, it's massive character, and it's hard. It's not, I don't know. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to.
No, not at all.
But
no.
I feel remiss if we don't mention.
Yeah, of course. And it's important that we do, because we want to keep their names going. For people that, especially for people from a next generation that wouldn't know them. If you go back and listen to Gargoyle Saints in their album, it's incredible. It's an absolutely incredible album. And I think a lot of people might write something like that off as being as Aussie in an Aussie hip hop way. He's got a very strong tone to his voice, and but lyrically, it's poetry, man. It's just insane. and Murky, I feel, the big part of grime died in this country. It's when he passed away, big part, a quarter of Smash Brothers, him and Diam, they're they grew up together, as partners in crime. They're they were it was Diam and Murky, me and Scotty, we joined forces together, and feel like there's a big part missing. Definitely doesn't feel real sometimes. That they're both, it's big losses.
Yeah.
But unfortunately these things happen in life, and I just we'll always talk about them, represent their name, and never forget them.
Yeah, for sure, man. And it's important. I think a lot of people don't mention friends that are passed, because it does become hard. So it is important that we remember those sort of people that we've lost that are close to us and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So
Ultra. Right, sorry. Sorry to
not at all, mate. Not at all. I'm just not at all.
Let's just talk about, what do you think? And look, obviously from a grime, but also a hip hop perspective, it's really interesting the way that Australia now, every city has its own sort of vibe. I think Melbourne's got an interesting vibe, but every city kind of hip hop or whatever you want to is kind of gone in a different way in each different city.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to be honest, I think there has always been a definite sound and vibe to each city. You know what I mean? And I remember it's very much related to, the urban sprawl and the environment and the weather and things like that as well. I remember many, many years ago hearing someone talking about punk and hardcore, and talking about the differences between New York and California, music. And how, New York has got that very hard, aggressive, bang your head against the wall, fucking dark vibe, which, reflects the environment of New York, and then California has that, the more upbeat, surfy, happy, party, girls vibe, and it just reflects the environment. I think that's the same with music everywhere, and the same with, you look at London music, it's very much like that. And I think it's the same here as well, Perth has always kind of had quite up-tempo, party-ish sort of stuff happening. Whereas Melbourne has always felt like the New York of Australia, you know what I mean? And Sydney's always been reflective of the, maybe not gang culture, but it's that houso and the territorial stuff, you know what I mean? I feel when I'm in Sydney, I feel very much, it's I feel similar vibe to London. But with beaches.
Yeah. And views everywhere.
And I feel there's very much a dog-eat-dog attitude in Sydney, you know what I mean? It's very, there's, a lot of people, there's not, it doesn't feel like the same as, there's not the community vibe that you get in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Very much people are out for each other and stuff. You know, you know what I mean?
And then Brisbane's got its own thing happening too.
Yeah. I haven't spent as much time in Brisbane.
But just musically, you can sort of
Yeah, It's kind of. I think they've got a really cool community thing going on in Brisbane. There seems to be, from what, and especially in the past few years as well. You know.
And there's, like you mentioned before, with like 1-4 and the HP boys, and like there's in Queensland there's NME, and like there's that whole Polynesian thing is really big at the moment.
Yeah. I don't really know much about it, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like like I'll be honest, I don't really listen to any much rap music. Like, you know, so like I kind of shut off from it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really, especially in my own community or my own the country I live in. I just don't really listen to much of it, to be honest. Not because I think it's whack or anything. It's just, don't know. Just I prefer listening.
What are you listening to then? If you're not listening to grime, what kind of music are you kicking back?
I listen to grime. I listen to grime, grime out of England. But I think the music I listen to mostly is dancehall.
Yeah.
That's really what I listen to most. Like, it's, you know, upbeat, it's fun, lively, you know, puts me in a good mood, you know. So that's really what I listen to, if you know, for the most part.
So
Yeah.
And what about personal projects moving forward? Any plans on new albums or anything, man?
Probably not.
Really?
I doubt. Yeah, probably not. I doubt I'll do another album ever.
Ever?
No, I don't know. Well, I don't know. Who knows? You know, I'm just I've just moved. I've just left Melbourne. You know, and I'm just enjoying a bit of time away from it all. Like it's like that. What's that? It's like the you know, was it the Goodfellas? Is it, or Casino? Where it's like, just when you think you're out, they drag me back in. I all felt like that. Like, for so long, it's hard for me to let go and move away, but I want to do other stuff. Don't want to be constantly trying to compete and be a part of this thing. I want to do other stuff, and I want to, you know, and maybe I need a little break to re-energize and remotivate, you know?
Totally.
So I've left Melbourne, and I'm in the middle of like a real quiet place with no one about. You know, I felt Melbourne was getting a bit too like hectic for me, too many people, too much traffic, and
as you get older, that plays on you.
Yeah, you know, and I'm down by the coast, and like there's no one about, there's no traffic. I feel like this like stress lifted off me, you know, like my road rage is getting insane in Melbourne. Like now I'm like, I don't care. I drive in the slow lane and I'll say hello to strangers.
So that's it.
You know,
I think that's part of maturing and growing up a bit as well. I never thought I'd leave the sort of St Kilda area, and you get to an age where you're like, I don't need all this hecticness. I don't need to get run over by a tram just getting a coffee, you know? Like,
so, you know, I think, so I'm always, I'm sort of stopping, but I'm always getting dragged back in. I'm always writing something new. Like, I'm going to the studio today, so.
There you go.
You know, but I'm trying to, what I want to get away from is I don't want to do any more, I don't really want to do any features on other people's stuff. I just don't want to, if I'm going to do something, what I would like to do is work with like one producer on a project. If I was going to do something, that would be how I would go, where I just, you know, just take our time with it, you know, and do it that way. But there's other things I want to do, you know. I want to learn how to produce.
Yep.
Like, so I don't want to get out of music necessarily, but you know, it gets tiring. It gets tiring, especially as you get older, being in, you know, and you know, going and playing in clubs at 2 a.m. and stuff like that, and you know, playing to 18 and 19-year-olds, and you know what I mean? Like, you know, when you're old enough to be their dad, you know, and competing with 18 and 19-year-olds, you know, who don't give, you know. So I'd like to get into film, you know. I've written stories, you know, which I'd like to put into reality. That's kind of something I'm quite into. I spend a lot of time reading. I'm really into history. I love history. Like, that's a big passion of mine. And so there's just other creative things I want to do, you know, outside of music. And it's you know, it's hard, you know, getting older in the hip hop scene. It's a young man's game.
Yeah,
you know, very much so.
But then the production is a great way to stay involved, and obviously you're also someone that the younger generation look up to. So if you can do that, then you can kind of
I think that's something I'd really want to give a bash, you know, because I think I have a good ear, and I think I can. Once I master, I've always avoided it because I'm not a technical person. I'm not a computer guy. You know, I don't know where to start on that stuff. But you know, I think once I get my head around some of the basics of it, I think I could do something good. But I'm not sure that I would make hip hop. I don't think I would make hip hop or even grime, maybe.
Really?
You know, I like instrumental electronic music. You know, and that's kind of stuff that kind of changes and tells a story and stuff. I listen to a lot of I listen to stuff like Zombie and Burial. These guys, like, if you don't know, check them out. They're like it's very atmospheric, ethereal, kind of dark music, and I really like that kind of stuff.
Would you make that under Fracture, or you'd make it under a new nut?
Nah. If I started making music under a different name, you wouldn't know. I wouldn't talk about it.
Really?
Under Fracture, nah.
Maybe it's already out there and we don't know.
Maybe. But yeah, I think I've been speaking to Carney recently about about him showing me some production stuff, and I think that's probably where I'd sort of go down the path I would go down. But like I say, it's always hard to stop the MCing because I do love it, but it's. I want to. If I do it, it's going to be very like live wise. I turn down gigs every week at the moment. I'm just not interested unless it's something special, or something. You know what I mean? Because for so long, I've just done every gig under the sun. Just because I just love doing it. It's not been about money or anything like that. Oh yeah, I want to come and spit there. I'll spit there, spit there. But I just don't want to do that anymore. So if I haven't done a gig now in a long time. I haven't done a Smash Brothers gig in 18 months. Probably.
Yeah.
So it would have to be something special for us to do it.
With the production stuff, and you mentioned Carney, like obviously he does a lot of the production for Posse Shot, but does he make other kind of electronic music as well?
Yes.
He does.
Yeah. He's incredible producer,
Yeah.
So. And he's made some real interesting atmospheric stuff that you wouldn't expect to hear from him.
Has he put it out there, or?
Yeah, he's definitely put some stuff out. Not like official releases, but on his SoundCloud and stuff, and little mixes here and there. I think he can kind of turn his. He's a genius. Like a lot of stuff, he can turn his hand to anything.
He's a great marketer too. He really
Incredible.
knows. He knows exactly what's going on.
100%. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, it's you need someone like that to really take you to the next level in many ways. Like you need to be. I think in this day and age, you can't just be. If you want to do music, you can't just do music.
No.
You need to have the documentarian. You need to have the marketing. You need to have You need to be an influencer in some way, in many ways.
Definitely do. What percentage of people do you think actually make money off music now? Like, not many. You've got to make money off the merch and building the brand. It's the only way.
Yeah. So, and none of me, Diamond Scotty. That's none of us. Like, you know what I mean?
But yeah.
So, but you didn't need that back then necessarily. So, you know what I mean? Like, like Diamond Scotty, very much music mode. If the kind of the organisation of gigs and things like that and release and stuff has kind of generally come down to myself, and I'm not the greatest at it. It's just because I was.
You're the best out of the group at it.
Well, not even the best, but like I took the lead to do that. But I've always wished that there was someone else that could come in from outside and do that stuff. But at the same time, I'm a control freak, and I wouldn't have let that. Probably wouldn't have allowed that. You asked Diamond Scotty, like I'm.
Yeah.
That's what I'm like. I have a vision of how I want things, and so which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't.
Doesn't work.
But it worked for 50-50, and
Yeah. Have you tried to get Checkmate to sort of go down that route of making some more experimental kind of music?
He definitely makes. He's made some different stuff as well, for sure.
Not dance music though.
What do you mean, like?
Well, not so. Does he make actual you're saying you want to go more down the dance kind of music route?
Not really dance, but
Not dance.
no, it's electronic. It's got its roots in that, I guess.
Atmospheric.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't really spoken to him about it. I know that he could do it. Like
that's what.
Kind of maybe a good way of thinking it is like soundtracks and things like that.
Okay.
I love
cinematic.
Cinematic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to. There's a genre called drone music.
Yeah.
Which sounds
I
weird,
love all
man.
these bizarre genres, man. I think they're awesome.
And sometimes I'll just drive in the dark listening to drone music, and it's like just it can bring you to tears sometimes, like the
Yeah.
emotion in it, you know, like you don't know why, you know. But that's I really like emotional music, you know, which is hard to do in rap,
Yeah.
you know, unless you know it can be done, and there are some people who do it very good, but I think it's as instrumental music, it's there's a certain power to it, you know, because it's you're not there's no accent to it. There's no it can be from anywhere in the world, and anyone in the world can hear it. You know what I mean? So
It speaks all languages at once.
yeah, you know, where it's, you know, sometimes people will put you in a box straight away when they hear your voice or you hear it say a type of word, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, you know, at the same time, I started listening to some like punk from my youth again recently as well, and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I was chatting to Rates, Curse's brother, the other day, you know, recently about stuff because he listens to a lot of that stuff. I was like, you know, I'd love to be in a band as well, like, and
Yep.
I actually, you know, I'd love to do that. I'd like to do something outside of hip hop and grime, really. You know?
Awesome, man.
So we'll see.
Rates, he watches some of the episodes and he's agreed to, when he's in Melbourne,
is
to
he?
do one, which
really,
would be cool.
Yeah, really nice guy, man. Like, really good guy, you know. We did a song a couple of years ago, which I was really happy with. And I think we're from a similar generation, grew up around similar stuff, and you know, he's a straight down the line good guy. I've got a lot of time for him.
So on your personal journey, moving out of the city, you touched on it's a relief, and you see that's where you want to be going forward. You don't want to be back in the city anytime soon.
Who knows how I feel? Like I've only been out a month, you know.
Really?
So
It's
yeah,
early days.
it's early days. I'm like I thought I would be bored, you know, but I think because everyone knows me as being very busy, and I've always been very busy and doing stuff constantly. I never have time to myself or just chill. Now I've got all the time in the world to chill, and I'm really enjoying it. Like, you know, just having no plans and being able to say no to people, like, about stuff, you know. So who knows? I think like we're planning to do a year and see how we go. Like, but I think I could do it. I think, you know, I think I could, you know, maybe grow a long beard, just start fishing, and you know, I got myself a 4x4. Like I've got some Oakleys. I feel a bit more Aussie now. Like, you know, like you know, I'm going swimming in the ocean, which I never did. I never went deeper than my ankles.
Really?
You know, so I'm kind of trying to embrace the outdoor lifestyle a bit more. You know, which I think just happens as you get older, maybe. You know, and I've always grown up in very urban environments, and you know, I just took a look around the other day at where I am, and I'm like, fuck, to come from Slough, like the brutalist, like, architecture, the dreariness, the greyness, and the, you know, the shit, all the violence and roughness everywhere around you, and now I'm in the middle of nowhere, almost with no one around me. I'm just like, it's just kind of, it feels
You
nice
wouldn't have
at the moment.
forecasted that, would you?
Nah, like, you know, it's weird. I've never made a lot of money out of music, but it's changed my life. Well, you know, and it's like in a crazy way. Like I would have just thought I was going to grow up and live most of my life in Slough.
And you probably speak to people that still are there.
Yeah, I do. And when I go back, they're going to the same pubs and doing the same things.
They're doing what their dads were doing, sort of thing.
Yeah, some, not all, but you know, some are. But I know a lot have regrets, perhaps, that they didn't do what I did, or you know, and you know, for all the time you spent the last 20 years doing all this stuff that didn't really do anything for you money wise. Most people would love to spend one night on stage, you know, and do it, and would never have that experience, you know. So it swings and roundabouts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so for me, I look at it as all I ever wanted when I started doing music was to be like, you know, like a skinny man, sort of underground rapper, icon type thing. And I'm not that. I'm not skinny man anywhere near, but I feel I've achieved something, and you know, I can go anywhere in the country and play music and have people know my music, and to me that's a success. So you know, because you know, there was never no one ever thought anyone was going to make money from hip hop outside of America, and so now that's an opportunity. If I was a young kid getting into it now, that would be my aim.
Yeah.
But for me, coming from the time I did to be where I am now, I feel like I've achieved something and it's been a success. So, yeah, it's interesting, man. But yeah, I'm really enjoying living out in the country and, you know, seeing. Yeah, it's just different. And I don't think you'll find me back. Like, look, I'd love to have a spot in both.
That's the dream, yeah.
You know, and have but at the same time, I went back a couple of weeks ago, you know, and as soon as I got into as soon as I got into them,
Feel a bit
like
suffocated?
I felt,
Yeah.
and I started fucking having, you know, road rage and you know, like, and I was like, oh, I can't do this. I'm stressing myself out, like, you know.
And you're only a month in, man.
Yeah.
So, like, that'll become, yeah.
You know, so I'm really enjoying it. You know, I've got just me, my wife, and my dog, and just shut ourselves off for a little bit. You know, so and maybe some time away will, like I say, re-energize my desire to make music or be involved in some way. You know, maybe other opportunities will bring themselves in. You know, I have thought in the past about, you know, going down the path of like managing other artists. I've done like mentoring to a degree of some artists, but I think, you know, if I found the right artist that would be keen to work with me, I think that could be something, you know.
Man, yeah, well, I'm sure people will be DMing you when they see this.
Oh,
because-
don't. Not yet.
Man, we could talk for hours, I'm sure, and I'd love you to come back again, and we could do another one, maybe 12 months down the track when you've lived there and you've got some more. Man, I'd love
for sure.
that.
Yeah. And what I might look very different, you know. I look like someone out of ZZ Top or something. Well, then, you know, the
you
big,
look like
big...
Rick Rubin.
yeah. You know, I'm wearing slides these days.
There you
Like,
go.
as someone who's made multiple songs about shoes, and I'm wearing the same fucking slides and wife beater every day.
There you go. That's the thing, man. Do you want to shout out anybody? You obviously not got any personal tracks or projects coming up, but do you want to just shout anyone who you want to big up, you know, before we sort of wrap it up, man?
Yeah, well, you know, all the, you know, Dime and Scotty Irons, you know, my two brothers in the Smash Brothers, you know, I love them guys to death, you know, and, you know, I'm very proud of what we've achieved together and continue to do so. And Scotty is probably the only one of us that's really active in music, and he's kind of re-energized over the past few years.
Yeah.
It's out of nowhere, like, and he's very prolific with making music, and he's making the best music he's ever made in his life. So make sure you go out and support Scotty's music, go and listen to that, because it's really levels, you know, the stuff he's talking about as well is just crazy, you know. And, you know, Checkmate, who, you know, we've spoken to previously, you know, he continues to, I don't know how he does it, like, you know, prolific, you know, continues to work and put out great music and be a catalyst for multiple other people, you know, being able to do what they do. You know, I wouldn't have been able to do half of what I did without having his backing, you know, so I want to shout him out. And obviously everyone on Broken Tooth, I could say everyone's name, but, you know, they're all my people, you know. And I think that's probably it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. But thank you so much for having me, man.
No,
really enjoyed it. And yeah, what you're doing is great. I think it's really good, you know, and having these long form chats with people, you know, I'm learning some stuff from people that, you know, I've known for years as well, and
that's it, man.
really enjoying them. So
yeah. Cheers. Yeah, that's the whole idea, is to learn from people, and we do have a rich history of interesting people in Melbourne. I'll never fucking run out of guests. That's the thing.
No. There's plenty.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even know there was a porn star from Frankston until
There you go.
You know, so, you know, yeah. I'm really, you know, Dietrich's interview I watched the other day, I said to you before, I really enjoyed that.
Yep.
Dietrich's a really great guy, man, you know, as well. So that was a real good watch.
And that's the thing, that we're speaking to these people, but I guess hopefully the audience as well, they get insights and they realise that these people are real people. You know what I mean? Like, it's easy to see them from afar or social media, but then to get an insight and find out, that's what I find really cool about it.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think, it's doing a good thing, mate.
Oh, cheers. Well, yeah, man, I'd love to have you come back again. We can talk about where your journey's at. And there's lots more. I'm sure people will message me. Why didn't you ask him about this? Why didn't you ask him about this? But eventually, man, we've got to eventually wrap it up.
Yep.
So thanks, Frax, for coming, man. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me.
Cheers.
3000.